Rain is falling over the border of rain country, and if you listen closely, really closely, you can hear something underneath the storm. Not thunder. Something faster. Something quieter. There's a bandit stronghold tucked into the hills tonight, walls slick with mud, torches guttering under the downpour. 12 men inside. Extortionists. Smugglers. The kind of men who prey on merchant caravans and burn villages that can't pay their toll. A local lord hired a team to make the problem disappear, and paid enough gold that nobody would ever ask questions about who did it. For shadows move along the ridge above the compound. They don't speak. They don't need to. Hand signals cut through the rain like knives. One gesture, and the group splits in two. Another gesture, and the split becomes four. At the center of it all is the smallest shadow of the group. Not the tallest. Not the strongest looking. But watch how the others move around him. Watch how, without a word, they fall into formation the second his hand lifts. He wears a mask carved into the shape of a fox, whiskers etched into white porcelain, and if you didn't know better, you'd think a child had wandered onto a battlefield. You'd be wrong to think that. The first guard on the wall doesn't even have time to shout. The second one gets one syllable out before the fox-masked figure is already gone, vanished into the compound like smoke pulled through a keyhole. Inside, chaos erupts. But it is a controlled kind of chaos, the kind you only see when every single person in the room already knows exactly how the fight is supposed to end. 90 seconds later, it's over. 12 men down. 0 casualties on the other side. The fox-masked leader stands in the center of the compound, breathing steady, rain running off the edges of his mask like tears that were never his to cry. A hawk descends from the storm clouds, landing on the outstretched arm of one of the taller shadows. A message is attached to its leg. The taller figure reads it, nods once, and the 4 of them disappear into the night as quickly as they came. There will be no report of this mission in any bandit village's history. No name will ever be written down. No hero will be celebrated in Rain Country's taverns over cups of hot tea and warm cider. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, this squad, and its commander, never existed at all. But you know better. Because you're about to find out exactly who was standing under that fox mask. If that thought just sent a chill down your spine, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now, because trust me, by the end of this chapter, you are not going to believe who Konoha has been hiding in plain sight. 3 days later, and about as far from a rain-soaked bandit stronghold as you can possibly imagine, a very different scene is unfolding in the Konoha Ninja Academy. Transform. Naruto Uzumaki throws every ounce of concentration he has into the hand seal, teeth gritted, whisker-marked cheeks puffed out with effort, and in a puff of smoke, instead of a perfect copy of Irika-sensei, there stands a lumpy, deformed, slightly cross-eyed monstrosity that looks like it crawled out of a fever dream. The classroom erupts into laughter. Nice one, Naruto! Someone calls from the back, and it is decidedly not a compliment. Sakura Haruno is covering her mouth, trying, and failing, not to giggle. Even Shikamaru Nara, who normally can't be bothered to care about anything, cracks a small, tired grin at the sheer disaster of it. Irika sighs, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Naruto, that's the 4th time you've failed the transformation jutsu this week. I almost had it that time. Naruto protests, jabbing a thumb at his own chest. Believe it, you almost had a migraine is what you almost had, mutters Kiba Inuzuka, and the laughter doubles. Naruto's grin doesn't waver, not on the outside, anyway. He scratches the back of his head, laughs along with them, plays the part exactly the way he's played it for years. Loud, clumsy, a little pathetic, always good for a joke. The class clown. The dead last. The kid who can't do anything right. If you're watching this and thinking, wow, this kid really can't catch a break, hold that thought. Because in about 10 minutes, you're going to watch the same failing student do something that is going to completely rearrange everything you think you know about him. Class lets out that afternoon under a bruised orange sky, and Naruto trudges home the way he always does, hands shoved in his pockets, hood up, that easy grin fading the moment there's no one left to perform for. His apartment is small, one room, thin walls that let in every draft of Konoha's autumn wind. He tosses his bag onto a chair, flops onto the bed, and lies there staring at the ceiling for exactly 40 seconds. Then he sits up, and something in his eyes changes completely. Gone is the goofy, wide-eyed clumsiness. What's left behind is a kind of stillness that 13-year-olds simply are not supposed to have. He checks the window. He checks the door. He listens, actually listens, the way a hunter listens for a heartbeat in the underbrush, and after a moment, he allows himself the faintest, grim smile. 2 on the roof across the street, he murmurs to himself, voice flat. 1 in the alley behind the noodle stand. Sloppy tonight, old man. He's talking about the ANBU tail assigned to watch him. Yes, the 3rd Hokage has ANBU quietly monitoring Naruto Uzumaki, sworn to secrecy, ostensibly for the boy's protection given the number of villagers who still throw him hateful looks on the street. It is one of the worst kept secrets in the upper echelons of the village that Naruto's file carries certain special considerations. What almost nobody knows, what only a small handful of people in the entire world are aware of, is that Naruto has known about those watchers for over a year. And more than that, he has learned, quietly and methodically, exactly how to slip past every single one of them. He waits until the moon dips behind a cloud. Then, with a fluidity that would make Iraka drop his clipboard in shock, Naruto slides open his window, drops 3 stories down the side of the building using nothing but fingertip holds and the barest whisper of chakra, and melts into the shadow of a drainage ditch that runs beneath the street. He doesn't run. Running draws the eye. He moves like water, finding the lowest point, unhurried, silent, invisible. Behind the noodle stand, the ANBU operative on watch shifts his weight, glancing toward Naruto's apartment window, still shut, curtains drawn, exactly as they should be. He has no idea that the boy he's supposed to be watching is currently 17 meters behind him, moving through a drainage tunnel that isn't on any official map of the village. If you think that's impressive for a kid who can't land a transformation jutsu in front of his own class, buckle in, because we haven't even gotten to the good part yet. Smash that subscribe button now, because in a few minutes, you're going to meet the people Naruto is sneaking out to see, and trust me, they are not academy students. 15 minutes later, in a nondescript storage building on the edge of Konoha that officially belongs to a defunct textile merchant, a hidden trapdoor beneath a stack of empty crates leads down into a chamber that does not appear on any blueprint filed with the village council. 3 figures are already waiting when Naruto drops silently from the ceiling access hatch, landing without a sound. The first is a tall young woman with pale, unblinking eyes, a telltale sign of the Hyuga clan's bloodline. Her hataite is scratched through, marking her as a missing nin, though anyone who actually looked at her file would find something stranger. No bounty, no wanted poster, no official record that she ever left the village at all. She wears a high-collared, long-sleeved tactical uniform with fully covered arms and legs, practical, modest, built for silence and speed rather than show. Her name, as far as this room is concerned, is simply Bayako. The second is a broad-shouldered young man who has not spoken a single word in the 2 years Naruto has known him. He communicates entirely through a series of hand signs faster and more complex than anything taught at the academy. A private language built between people who cannot afford to be overheard. Scars along his throat suggest exactly why he doesn't speak, though no one has ever asked him directly. He goes by Ibaraki. The third is an older woman, perhaps mid-20s, with a medic satchel strapped across her back and tired, watchful eyes. Officially, she died 3 years ago on a border skirmish mission gone wrong. Unofficially, she has been very much alive this entire time, serving under a name that belongs to no clan registry, Suzu. And then there's the 4th chair in the room, Naruto's chair, sitting empty until he settles into it, pulling a plain fox mask from a hidden pouch sewn into his jacket lining and setting it on the table in front of him. Report, Naruto says, and his voice, the voice of the failing academy student, is nowhere to be found. What replaces it is calm, low, edged with an authority that 13-year-olds are not supposed to possess. Bayako speaks first. Rain Country mission is confirmed clean. No survivors reported, no witnesses. The Lord's payment has already been routed through 3 shell accounts, untraceable back to the village. Casualties? None on our side, she says. Ibki took a graze on his shoulder, nothing that needs Suzu's attention. Ibaraki shakes his head to confirm, tapping 2 fingers against his shoulder, and then giving a thumbs up. Naruto nods slowly. Good. That's the 4th clean extraction this month. Whoever's running black market weapons through Rain Country is going to start noticing bodies piling up with no explanation. Let them notice, Suzu says quietly, folding her arms. That's rather the point, isn't it? Fear without a face is worse than fear with one. There's a silence in the room, the kind of silence that settles over people who have seen far more than they should have at their age, except for Naruto, who is younger than every single person at this table by nearly a decade, and yet is the one they all, without exception, defer to. There's something else, Bayako says, sliding a scroll across the table. Word from the Hokage's private channel. New assignment incoming. High priority. Naruto picks up the scroll, breaking the seal, a seal that would mean absolutely nothing to anyone outside this room, a personal cipher only the third Hokage and Squad Zero know how to read. His eyes scan the contents, and for the briefest moment, something flickers behind that careful, controlled expression. Not fear exactly. Something closer to a held breath. There's a leak, he says finally. Someone's been selling village intelligence to Kumogakure. Border Censorine. The old man wants him found and silenced before he can hand over anything about our defense rotations. When? Suzu asks. Naruto sets the scroll down. Soon. Before he makes contact with his buyer, he glances up, and for a moment, the mask on the table between them seems to stare back at all of them with the same hollow, patient calm that Naruto himself is projecting. There's a small complication, he adds, and there's the faintest, wry twist at the corner of his mouth, the first hint of the real Naruto peeking through the cracks. Genin exams are this week. Bayako's pale eyes narrow slightly. Ibaraki's hands go still. Even Suzu, usually the most composed of the three, allows herself a small huff of disbelief. You're joking, Bayako says. I wish I was. If you're wondering how exactly a 13-year-old boy plans to lead a Black Ops assassination mission and pass a Ninja Academy graduation exam in the same week, you are asking exactly the right question, and the answer is going to matter a lot more than you think. But before we get there, we need to go back. Because none of this, the mask, the squad, the secret chamber under an abandoned textile warehouse, started the way you'd expect. It started with a mob, a beating, and an old man who made a choice that would change everything. 3 years earlier, the village is different at night when there are no ANBU cloaks to hide behind and no polite masks of civility left on anyone's face. 3 years earlier, a much smaller Naruto, barely 10 years old, all elbows and knees and stubborn defiance, is running through a back alley with blood running down the side of his face, chased by a group of adults who should absolutely know better. It's the anniversary of the Ninetales attack. It always happens around this time of year. The old wounds reopening, old grudges finding a small, unlucky target to take them out on. Naruto doesn't understand why. He's never understood why. All he knows is that some nights, the village stops pretending to merely dislike him and decides, instead, to actually hurt him. He trips. Someone grabs his collar. A fist connects with his ribs hard enough that the world goes white at the edges, and for a moment, just a moment, 10-year-old Naruto genuinely believes this might be the night he doesn't get back up. And then silence. Not the silence of the alley emptying out. The silence of every single attacker suddenly frozen in place, mid-motion, as if the air itself had turned to stone around them. A figure steps out of the shadows, an old man in white and red robes, a smoking pipe absent from his hand for once, his expression carved from something far colder than the grandfatherly warmth the village usually sees from him. The third Hokage does not raise his voice. He does not need to. The pure, suffocating weight of his presence is enough to send the mob scattering into the night, tripping over each other in their haste to be anywhere else. Hiruzen Sarutobi kneels down beside the boy, and for a moment, there's real, unguarded grief in his eyes, the look of a man watching history repeat itself in the worst possible way. Naruto, he says quietly. Can you stand? Naruto, through a split lip and a rapidly swelling eye, manages a shaky, furious nod. I'm fine, he mutters, the way he always mutters it. I don't need help. I know you don't, Hiruzen says, and there's something in his voice that makes the boy actually look up at him. But I think it's time we talked about something. Something important. He doesn't take Naruto to a hospital that night, not immediately. Instead, he brings him to a private office deep within the Hokage Tower, seals the door with a jutsu Naruto doesn't recognize, and sits across from him with the kind of gravity usually reserved for war councils. You know why the villagers treat you the way they do, Hiruzen says. It isn't a question. Naruto's jaw tightens. The fox, he says. I know I've got the stupid fox sealed inside me. I've known for a while. If Hiruzen is surprised the boy figured it out on his own, he doesn't show it. Then you understand the weight you carry is not something you asked for, and not something you deserve to be punished for. Doesn't matter what I understand, Naruto snaps, more heat in his voice than he probably intends. They still hate me for it. Hiruzen is quiet for a long moment, weighing something, a decision, clearly, that he has turned over in his mind many times before tonight, but never quite been willing to act on. I have a proposal for you, he says finally. One I would not offer to any other child in this village. One that comes with a burden far heavier than anything you have carried so far, and I want you to understand that before you answer. Naruto blinks at him, swelling eye and split lip and all. What kind of proposal? The village has certain obligations, Hiruzen says carefully, that cannot be carried out through official channels. Threats that must be dealt with quietly, decisively, and without ever being traced back to Konoha's name. I am building a unit for that purpose. Unlisted. Unregistered. A squad that, as far as any historical record is concerned, will never have existed. And you want me in it? I want you to lead it. The silence that follows is heavy enough that you can practically hear 10-year-old Naruto's entire worldview readjusting itself in real time. I don't understand, he says slowly. I can't even do the transformation jutsu right. Everyone at the academy thinks I'm the worst student in my year. That, Hiruzen says, and for the first time that night, something almost like a smile goes across his weathered face, is exactly why it will work. No one will ever suspect the failing, friendless troublemaker of being anything more than exactly what he appears to be. Your reputation is not a weakness, Naruto. It is the perfect disguise. He leans forward, elbows on his desk, eyes locking onto the boys with an intensity that makes Naruto sit up a little straighter despite the pain radiating through his ribs. I will train you myself, in secret, alongside operatives I trust with my life. You will learn skills far beyond anything taught at the academy. You will carry burdens no child should carry. And in exchange, you will have something this village has never given you before. What's that? Purpose, Hiruzen says simply. And the power to make sure that what happened to you tonight never happens to anyone else who cannot defend themselves. 10-year-old Naruto sits there for a long, long moment, blood drying on his face, ribs aching, the weight of an impossible choice settling onto shoulders far too young to bear it. And then he wipes his nose with the back of his hand, looks the third Hokage dead in the eye, and says the words that would quietly, invisibly reshape the entire future of the Hidden Leaf Village. Okay, old man. Teach me. Back in the present, in the hidden chamber beneath the abandoned textile warehouse, Suzu is watching her young commander with a complicated expression, something between pride and worry. The way you might look at someone you've watched grow into a responsibility you're not sure they should have ever been given in the first place. You're really going to do both, she says. It's not really a question either. Naruto picks up the fox mask from the table, turning it over once in his hands before sliding it back into its hidden pouch. I've been doing both for 3 years, he says. This isn't any different. The Chunin exams will draw a lot more attention than the academy did, Bayako points out. Teams. Sensei evaluations. If you get placed on a squad with a jonin who actually pays attention, then I'll be careful, Naruto cuts in, and there's an edge to his voice now, the frustration of someone who has had this argument in his own head 100 times already. I've been careful for 3 years. I can keep being careful. Ibaraki's hands move in a quick series of signs. Suzu translates without needing to be asked, her voice soft. He says the Sensonin mission doesn't wait for anyone's schedule. Leak gets worse the longer we take. He's right, Naruto says, standing. He walks to the far wall, where a simple wooden board holds several photographs and hand-drawn maps. The Sensonin's last known routes, his contacts, a rough sketch of the village border checkpoint he's suspected of using to pass information north. We move on this in 2 days. Before the exam, not after. And if the exam and the mission collide? Suzu asks quietly. Naruto's hand hesitates for just a moment against the edge of the board. They won't, he says. But even he doesn't sound entirely convinced. If you're getting the sense that this is a promise Naruto isn't going to be able to keep, trust that instinct, because we are just getting started, and the collision between failing academy student and secret ANBU commander is going to hit a lot sooner, and a lot harder, than anyone in that room expects. The next morning, sunlight streams through the academy windows, and Iruka is midway through a lecture on chakra theory when he notices something small but strange. Naruto, usually fidgeting, doodling on his desk, or napping outright, is sitting unusually still, dark circles faintly visible under his eyes. Naruto, Iruka says, not unkindly. Are you feeling all right? Naruto blinks, and the mask, the other mask, the one made of grins and shrugs instead of white porcelain, slides back into place so quickly that if you hadn't been watching closely, you'd never have caught the gap at all. Never better, sensei, he says, flashing a grin. Just thinking about how awesome I'm gonna be at the genin exam. The class snickers. Iruka sighs, unconvinced but unwilling to push in front of everyone, and returns to the lecture. But here's the thing worth noticing, if you're paying attention the way Iruka almost was, 3 seats back, a dark-haired boy with an intense, unreadable stare is watching Naruto a beat too long. Sasuke Uchiha doesn't say anything. Doesn't react. Just watches, filing something away in the back of his mind the way he files away everything, quietly, patiently, the way someone does when a detail doesn't quite fit the picture they thought they understood. He noticed something in yesterday's sparring drill. A flicker, so brief he almost convinced himself he imagined it, a moment where Naruto's footwork, usually clumsy and overcommit, moved with a precision that had absolutely no business belonging to the class dead last. Sasuke doesn't know what he saw. Not yet, but he knows he saw something. That night, in the same hidden chamber beneath the warehouse, Naruto stands in front of a low table covered in surveillance notes on the rogue censorine, running through the plan one more time with his team. Suzu has laid out the man's known movement patterns. Bayako has mapped 3 possible extraction routes. Ibaraki has already scouted the meeting point twice under the cover of a genin exam week curfew that conveniently keeps most of the village's attention elsewhere. He's meeting his Kumogakure contact in 3 days, Naruto says, tracing a finger along the map. Same day as the written portion of the genin exam. Convenient, Bayako mutters. Or not, Suzu counters. If something goes wrong on this mission and Naruto doesn't show up for his own exam, I'll show up, Naruto says firmly. I'll do the mission at dawn, be back before the exam starts. It's tight, but it's doable. Bayako folds her arms, unconvinced, but doesn't argue further. She's learned over the past year that once Naruto commits to a plan, arguing rarely changes the outcome. Only the timeline of when everyone stops arguing and starts preparing. There's one more thing, Naruto adds, and something in his tone makes all 3 of them go still. He pulls a small folded note from his jacket, intercepted, apparently, through channels none of them asked him to explain. Our censorine isn't just selling border rotations. He's got information about someone else. A name I didn't expect to see. He unfolds the note and sets it on the table. Silence. Orochimaru. Bayako reads aloud, voice flat with the particular kind of dread that name earns in every corner of the shinobi world. He mentions experiments, Naruto says quietly. Kids. Whatever he's selling, it's not just intel on us. He's connected to something a lot bigger, and a lot uglier, than a simple border leak. The room goes very quiet. Ibaraki's hands twitch at his sides, not signing anything, just clenching once and releasing. This just got a lot more complicated, Suzu murmurs. Naruto folds the note back up, slipping it into his jacket, his jaw set in that same expression the 3rd Hokage first saw on a bloody 10-year-old boy 3 years ago. The look of someone who has already decided somewhere deep down that he is not going to walk away from this. Then we make sure it doesn't get more complicated than we can handle, he says. 2 days. We move at first light before the exam. Get some rest, that's an order. The team disperses one by one through the hidden exit tunnels, until only Naruto remains, standing alone in the low lamplight, fox mask sitting on the table in front of him like a second face waiting to be worn. He picks it up, turns it over once in his hands, and murmurs to no one in particular, just a little longer. Just get through this week. If only it were that simple. Because 2 days from now, at the exact moment Squad Zero closes in on their target, The fragile wall Naruto has built between his two lives, the failing genin and the masked commander, is about to crack in a way none of them saw coming. And somewhere in the shadows of that same border checkpoint, someone is going to see the fox mask up close for the very first time, and recognize the fighting style underneath it from somewhere that should be absolutely impossible. Who is it? What do they know? And how long can a 13-year-old boy really keep 2 entire lives a secret from the people who trust him most? There's a particular kind of silence that settles over a forest right before something goes catastrophically wrong. If you've ever stood in the woods at dusk and felt the birds stop singing all at once, you know exactly the silence I mean. 4 days after the border checkpoint mission, that same silence is settling over the ruins of an old border post deep in the land of rivers, and Naruto Uzumaki, currently crouched in the shadow of a collapsed watchtower, fox mask fixed firmly in place, has learned, the hard way, never to trust that kind of quiet. Byako status, he murmurs into the dark. Cellar entrance is 30 meters ahead. Buried under debris, comes the reply. Byako's pale eyes still active, scanning through stone and rotted timber alike. I'm reading chakra signatures below ground. Faint. Old. Whatever's down there has been sealed a long time. Seals mean traps, Suzu murmurs from Naruto's other side. Orochimaru never buried anything without making sure the wrong hands would regret digging it up. Naruto's jaw tightens beneath his mask. Then we don't dig carelessly. Ibaraki, take point on structural integrity. I want to know if that cellar's rigged to collapse before anyone sets foot inside it. Ibaraki's hands move in the quick, economical signs that have become as natural to this squad as spoken words. Understood. Moving now. The border post itself has been abandoned for nearly 6 years, ever since a skirmish between minor factions left it too damaged and too cursed with bad memory for anyone to bother rebuilding. Vines have long since swallowed the outer walls. The old guard tower leans at a precarious angle, held up more by stubbornness than structural integrity. It is, in short, exactly the kind of forgotten place a man like Orochimaru would have chosen to bury something he didn't want found. Ibaraki spends nearly 20 minutes methodically clearing debris from what was once a storage entrance, working in near total silence, occasionally pausing to test a support beam or tap gently against a suspicious patch of stone. Naruto watches the process with the particular kind of patience that 3 years of training has drilled into him, patience that would utterly baffle anyone who's only ever seen him flunk a transformation jutsu in front of a laughing classroom. Finally, Ibaraki straightens, signing a simple thumbs up followed by 2 fingers tapping his temple. Clear. But be careful anyway. The cellar door, when they finally pry it open, groans on hinges that haven't moved in years, releasing a breath of stale, cold air that smells faintly of rot and something else underneath it, something clinical, something that doesn't belong buried under 6 years of dust in an abandoned building. Chemical residue, Suzu says quietly, crouching at the threshold and inhaling carefully through her sleeve. Old. Whatever was stored down here, it wasn't just documents. Naruto lights a small chakra flame at the tip of his finger, casting a soft blue glow into the darkness below. Stone steps descend into a narrow chamber, and as the light spreads, 4 sets of eyes take in exactly what's been sitting undisturbed in this cellar for years. Rows of steel cages line the far wall, small enough that even now, Naruto's stomach tightens with an understanding none of them says out loud. Beside the cages, overturned medical equipment. Broken vials. Papers scattered across a stone floor, most of them too water-damaged to read, but a few, protected under a collapsed shelf, still legible enough to make out fragments of handwriting. Subject shows minimal resistance to bloodline grafting at this stage. Suzu reads aloud from one surviving page, her voice tight with barely restrained disgust. Recommend continued dosage through week 6. Byako's pale eyes have gone hard, her jaw set in a way Naruto has only seen a handful of times before, the same expression she wore the night she told him, years ago, about the seal burned into her own forehead. These are children's records, she says quietly. Ages listed here. 5, 6, 7 years old. Naruto crouches down beside one of the small steel cages, running a hand along the bars, feeling the cold metal beneath his glove. He doesn't say anything for a long moment. There's a particular kind of anger that doesn't announce itself loudly, the kind that just settles, quiet and permanent, somewhere behind the ribs. Bag everything readable, he says finally, voice low. Every page, every vile label. This goes back to the old man personally, not through any standard evidence chain. I don't want this sitting in a filing cabinet where the wrong person could find it. You think someone still wants this? Bayako asks. Genma said his contact who found this place died 3 months ago, Naruto reminds her. That's not a coincidence I'm comfortable ignoring. As if summoned by the very words, a soft scrape of displaced gravel echoes from the stairwell above. All 4 members of Squad Zero go still instantly. Weapons drawn before conscious thought even catches up to instinct. We're not alone, Suzu breathes. They emerge from the cellar into a clearing now occupied by 6 armed figures in featureless gray masks. Not Konoha ANBU, not Kumogakure agents, but something else entirely. Mercenaries, perhaps, or remnants of Orochimaru's old network sent to guard whatever secrets remain buried here. Well, says the lead figure, voice muffled behind his mask, looks like the rats found the cheese before we could clean it out ourselves. Naruto's hand tightens around the strap of the satchel now slung across his shoulder, containing the recovered documents. This site belongs to Konoha now. Walk away, and we don't have a problem. The lead mercenary laughs, an ugly, humorless sound. Cute mask, kid. You do know we outnumber you 6-4, right? 4, Naruto agrees calmly, against 6 of you who clearly weren't briefed on who else might be sent to clean up a mess like this. It isn't bravado. It's fact, delivered with the flat, unshakable confidence of someone who has never once lost a fight he was fully prepared for. But even Naruto, for all his training, isn't prepared for exactly how quickly this particular fight is about to spiral out of anyone's control. The first mercenary lunges, and the clearing erupts into chaos. Ibaraki meets 2 attackers head-on, his silent, brutal efficiency dropping one within seconds with a strike to the throat that leaves the man gasping in the dirt, unconscious but alive. Bayako engages a third with the fluid, precise strikes of Hyuga Taijutsu, her Byakugan tracking chakra points with lethal accuracy even as she deliberately pulls each blow just short of a killing strike. Suzu, normally positioned as support, finds herself forced into direct combat against the 4th attacker wielding a wickedly curved blade, her medical training giving her just enough anatomical knowledge to disable rather than destroy. Naruto squares off against the remaining 2, the lead mercenary and a taller, quieter figure who moves with an unsettling economy of motion that immediately marks him as considerably more dangerous than his companion. You're better trained than a border checkpoint censorine, the quiet one observes, circling. ANBU shouldn't be this small. You'd be surprised what Konoha's willing to hide, Naruto replies and strikes first. The exchange that follows is fast, brutal, and entirely one-sided in ways that should be impossible given the size difference between combatants. Naruto ducks a wide slash, drives an elbow into the lead mercenary's ribs hard enough to crack bone, and pivots just in time to deflect the quiet one's follow-up strike with the flat of his own blade. But the lead mercenary, wounded and desperate, does something none of them anticipated. He pulls a small clay sphere from his belt and hurls it directly at the cellar entrance behind them. No! Naruto starts, already moving, but it's too late. The sphere detonates against the cellar doorway, and the already unstable structure groans, then begins to collapse in earnest, stone and rotted timber crashing down in a cloud of choking dust. The documents! Suzu shouts, and Naruto's stomach drops as he realizes. The satchel is still slung across his shoulder, but half the cellar's contents remain buried beneath the rubble now, potentially destroyed, potentially still recoverable, but absolutely not something they have time to sort through with 2 armed combatants still very much intent on killing them. The lead mercenary, seizing the moment of distraction, lunges at Naruto with a blade aimed directly at his throat. And this is where everything changes. Time does something strange in moments like this. If you've never been in real, immediate danger, you might not know what I mean. But ask anyone who has, and they'll tell you the same thing. Everything slows down, and everything sharpens, all at once. Naruto sees the blade coming. He has, in fact, seen blades coming at his throat before. This isn't his first genuinely lethal encounter. Whatever his classmates might assume about the boy who can't land a transformation jutsu, his body reacts exactly the way 3 years of relentless training has conditioned it to react. Weight shifting, hand rising to intercept, A counter-strike already forming before the conscious part of his mind has even finished processing the threat. The counter-strike connects. It's clean, precise, exactly the kind of controlled disabling blows Suzu has drilled into him 100 times over, except the mercenary, off balance from his own desperate lunge, twists at the exact wrong moment, and what should have been a strike to disarm instead drives directly into his throat with the full, unforgiving force of Naruto's momentum behind it. The man makes a sound that Naruto is going to hear in his sleep for a long time afterward. Then he collapses, and doesn't get back up. The clearing goes very, very quiet. Naruto stands over the body, chest heaving, hands trembling in a way that has nothing to do with exhaustion and everything to do with the sudden, sickening understanding of exactly what just happened. He has trained for this. He has been told, in the abstract, clinical language of mission briefings, that a day would come when a kill wasn't avoidable. He has even, if he's being honest with himself, wondered privately what that day would feel like. It doesn't feel like anything he expected. It feels like the ground has tilted slightly beneath his feet, like the air has gone thin, like something has shifted permanently in the architecture of who he is. Naruto. Suzu's voice, uncharacteristically gentle, cuts through the ringing in his ears. She's moved to his side, one hand resting carefully on his shoulder, not pulling him away, just anchoring him. The remaining mercenaries fled. Bayako and Ibaraki have the perimeter. It's over. I didn't. Naruto starts, voice unsteady in a way that would utterly shatter the calm, commanding persona his squad has come to rely on. I wasn't trying to. I know, Suzu says quietly. I saw. It wasn't a killing strike. He moved into it. Doesn't change what happened. No, she agrees, and there's no false comfort in her voice, no easy reassurance that would ring hollow given the circumstances. It doesn't, but you don't get to carry this alone, and you don't get to carry it standing in the open where the next threat could catch you flat-footed. Let's move. If this is the first time you're seeing a piece of fiction slow down and actually sit with the weight of a first kill instead of glossing past it, that's deliberate, because Squad Zero's story only works if the cost is real. This isn't a victory lap. It's a 13-year-old boy learning, in the worst possible way, exactly what the third Hokage meant 3 years ago when he warned him this life would carry burdens no child should have to bear. We'll come back to that weight. But right now, Naruto still has to survive the walk home, and it's about to get a lot harder than any of them expect. Bayako and Ibaraki finish securing the perimeter, confirming the remaining mercenaries have either fled or been left unconscious and bound for later questioning. What's salvageable of the buried documents gets carefully extracted from the rubble. Perhaps 2/3 of what they originally recovered, singed and dust-covered but legible. Naruto says almost nothing on the journey back toward Konoha's border. His teammates, sensing exactly the kind of silence that shouldn't be filled with hollow reassurance, let him have it, falling into a loose formation around him that is protective without being obvious about it. It's Bayako who finally breaks the quiet, several hours into the return journey, as they make camp for a brief rest in a sheltered ravine well before dawn. First one's the hardest, she says simply, settling down across from him, not quite meeting his eyes, giving him the privacy of not being stared at while she says it. It doesn't get easier because you get used to it. It gets easier because you learn to carry it differently. Naruto stares at the small fire Suzu has carefully shielded from view, watching the flames without really seeing them. How did you carry yours? Bayako is quiet for a long moment. Badly at first, she admits. I didn't sleep for 3 days afterward. Kept seeing it every time I closed my eyes. Does that ever stop? Eventually it fades, she says. It doesn't disappear. But it fades enough that you can function again. That you can still be a person and not just a weapon someone else built. Ibaraki, sitting a short distance away, signs something quietly. Bayako translates without needing to be asked. He says he still remembers his first one too. Says it's part of why he chose the name he did. Naruto looks over at Ibaraki, who meets his gaze steadily, offering the kind of solidarity that doesn't need words to land with weight. Thank you, Naruto says quietly, to all 3 of them. For not pretending it's nothing. It's not nothing, Suzu says firmly, passing him a cup of warm tea from the small fire, something to hold, something to ground him. And anyone who tells you it should feel like nothing is lying to you about what this work actually costs. Drink that. We move again in 2 hours, and you need to be steady on your feet. Naruto wraps both hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into fingers that are still, faintly, trembling. They make it back into Konoha proper just before dawn, slipping through the same forgotten drainage routes and hidden entrances that have kept Squad Zero invisible for 3 years running. Naruto peels off from the group near the edge of the residential district, exhaustion sitting heavy in every muscle, the events of the past 12 hours pressing down on him with a weight that has nothing to do with physical fatigue. He makes it to his apartment, changes out of his tactical gear, and collapses onto his bed with barely enough time to sleep 2 hours before the academy day begins. It is, unsurprisingly, not enough sleep. And it shows. Naruto. Iruka's voice cuts through the classroom fog. Naruto has been drifting in and out of all morning, and he startles upright, blinking against the sudden attention of 30 classmates, all turning to look at him. Why yes, sensei? I asked you a question about basic elemental affinities, Iruka says, not unkindly, though there's genuine concern threading through his tone now. You've been staring at the wall for the last 5 minutes. A ripple of laughter moves through the class, but it's quieter this time, less gleeful than usual. Even Naruto's classmates, accustomed to his antics, can tell something is different about today's particular brand of distraction. Sorry, sensei, Naruto mumbles, forcing the familiar grin back onto his face, though it cost him considerably more effort than usual. Guess I didn't sleep great. Iruka studies him a moment longer than the joke warrants, something in his expression shifting from mild irritation to real, quiet worry. He doesn't push it in front of the class. He's learned over the years that whatever troubles this particular student, it rarely responds well to public scrutiny. But he makes a mental note. The kind of note a good teacher makes when a student's usual brand of trouble starts looking like something else entirely. 3 rows back, Sasuke Uchiha watches the entire exchange with narrowed eyes, adding it, quietly, methodically, to the growing list of details that don't quite fit the picture everyone else seems content to accept about Naruto Uzumaki. Dark circles under his eyes that weren't there a week ago. A flinch, barely perceptible, when Kiba clapped him on the shoulder during morning greetings. The reaction of someone whose body is braced for a threat that never comes from a friendly gesture. And now this, a stillness, a distance, utterly unlike the loud, restless energy Sasuke has watched this boy perform for years. Sasuke doesn't say anything. He's not ready to. But he's watching, and he's cataloging, and sooner or later, all of this is going to add up to a question he's not going to be able to keep to himself. That afternoon, after class is let out, Naruto makes his way, not to the hidden chamber beneath the warehouse, but to a small, unassuming clinic on the edge of the shinobi district that officially serves retired ninja with minor injuries, and unofficially serves as one of Squad Zero's designated medical checkpoints. Suzu is waiting for him in a private back room, already laying out supplies for a thorough examination. Sit, she says, and there's no room for argument in her tone. Let me look at you properly. Adrenaline can hide a lot of damage, and you were moving fast enough yesterday that I want to rule out anything you didn't notice in the moment. Naruto sits, allowing her to check the bruising along his ribs from a mercenary strike he'd barely registered during the fight, and a shallow cut along his forearm that had scabbed over without proper cleaning. You need actual sleep, Suzu says, cleaning the wound with practiced efficiency. Not the 2 hours you got last night. Real sleep. I know, Naruto mutters. Believe me, I know. It's just, he stops, jaw tightening. Just what? He's quiet for a long moment, watching her work. Then, almost involuntarily, his hand drifts up to his face, and, for the first time in longer than either of them can quite remember, he pulls off the small, unremarkable cloth mask he wears even here, even among people who already know everything about him, revealing his face fully in a gesture that feels more vulnerable than anything that happened in that clearing yesterday. It's a strange thing to witness, if you think about it. Naruto wears masks constantly. The porcelain fox mask of Kitsune, the wide, goofy grin of the failing academy student, and even smaller, subtler masks in between, calibrated for whoever happens to be watching. This moment, sitting in a quiet clinic with dark circles under his eyes and blood still faintly staining the edge of his sleeve, might be one of the only times all week that anyone sees him without any mask at all. I keep thinking about his face, he admits quietly. The mercenary. Right before. He knew what was happening, right at the end. I saw it in his eyes. Suzu's hands still for a moment on the bandage she's wrapping. That's the part that never fully goes away, she says gently. Not the fight itself. The moment you realize the person across from you is exactly as real and exactly as afraid as you'd be in their place. How do you keep doing this, if it never goes away? Because the alternative is worse, Suzu says simply. Because for every person like that mercenary, there are a dozen more who never get hurt because Squad Zero got there first. That doesn't erase what it costs you. It just means the cost is worth paying, as long as you don't let it hollow you out completely. Naruto nods slowly, though the weight in his chest doesn't lift much. You're exhausted, Suzu continues, tying off the bandage. Physically and in every other way that matters. I want you to actually sleep tonight. No missions, no training, nothing. I'll clear it with the old man myself if I have to. For once, Naruto doesn't argue. That evening, in the Hokage's private office, Hiruzen listens to Naruto's full report on the recovered research documents with the particular, careful stillness of a man absorbing information he'd hoped never to encounter again. Orochimaru's experiments on children, Hiruzen murmurs, flipping through the salvaged pages with an expression that has aged considerably in the last few minutes alone. I had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that we had recovered all of this years ago. There's more out there, Naruto says quietly. The dead contact Genma mentioned suggests someone's still actively managing what's left of this network. I'll have my people look into it, Hiruzen says. Then, setting the papers down, he studies Naruto with a different kind of attention, the attention of a man checking not on a mission's success, but on the person who carried it out. Suzu tells me you had your first confirmed kill on this mission. Naruto's jaw tightens. She told you that? She's required to, for the record, Hiruzen says, not unkindly. But she also told me, unprompted, that you handled it with more grace than most operatives twice your age manage on their first time. That matters, Naruto. Not because it makes it easier, but because it tells me my judgment about you 3 years ago wasn't wrong. It doesn't feel like grace, Naruto mutters. It feels like I keep seeing his face every time I close my eyes. You will, for a while, Hiruzen says, and there's real, hard-won honesty in his voice now, the voice of a man who has carried the exact same weight himself, decades ago, in wars this village has mostly finished pretending ever happened. That doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're still a person, and not the weapon some would prefer you to become. There's a pointed weight to that last phrase that Naruto doesn't miss. You're talking about Danzo, he says. Hiruzen's expression sharpens slightly, old caution flickering behind tired eyes. You've heard that name. Genma mentioned Root, Naruto says. Said someone trained under it before it was ever supposed to exist. And you still haven't told me who that person was. Hiruzen is quiet for a long moment, weighing something. Danzo Shimura, he says finally, runs an organization he believes serves this village's true interests, built on principles I have long disagreed with. Root does not raise children, Naruto. It manufactures tools, and discards them the moment they stop being useful. Something cold settles in Naruto's stomach, thinking immediately of Ibaraki, the scars on his throat, the name he chose for himself. The years spent believing silence and obedience were simply what a person was supposed to be. Is that where Ibaraki came from? You already know the answer to that, Hiruzen says quietly. What you don't yet know is that Danzo has never stopped believing Root's methods are superior to whatever unofficial alternative I've built in its place. If he ever learns the full scope of what Squad Zero has become, if he ever learns who leads it, he will see it not as a threat to expose, but as an asset worth claiming for himself. He wants to know, Naruto says slowly, putting the pieces together. That's why you've kept Squad Zero so deeply hidden. Not just from the village council. From him specifically. Hiruzen's silence is answer enough. Has he ever gotten close? Naruto asks. Closer than I'd like, Hiruzen admits. There have been inquiries. Questions about certain unregistered missions that don't match any official ANBU deployment. I have managed to deflect them so far, but Danzo is patient and thorough, and has never once stopped believing this village would be stronger under his methods than mine. Naruto sits with that for a long moment, the weight of the day, the kill, the exhaustion, the buried research, and now this, settling over him all at once. I need you to promise me something, Hiruzen says, his voice dropping into something more serious than Naruto has heard from him in months. If Danzo ever approaches you directly, as Kitsune, or as Naruto, in any capacity, you come to me immediately. Do not engage him. Do not try to outmaneuver him on your own. He has spent decades building an organization on the exact skills you're only 3 years into learning, and I will not lose you to his ambitions the way I nearly lost others before you. Others, Naruto repeats quietly. You still haven't told me who they were. Hiruzen's expression grows distant, old grief surfacing again beneath the careful composure. Not tonight, he says. Tonight you need rest more than you need old ghosts. Go home, Naruto. Sleep. That's an order, not a request. Naruto does go home that night. Actually home, actually to sleep, for the first time in what feels like weeks. But sleep doesn't come easily. He lies awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, replaying the mercenary's final expression, the old man's careful evasions about Root and Danzo and whoever came before him. The growing sense that Squad Zero's carefully guarded secrecy is a lot more fragile than he's allowed himself to believe. He doesn't know, as he finally drifts into an uneasy sleep, that across the village, in the sprawling underground complex that officially doesn't appear on any map either, Danzo Shimura is sitting across from one of his own operatives, reviewing a report with a single line circled in sharp, deliberate ink. Unregistered engagement. Land of River's border, 6 confirmed hostiles engaged. 1 fatality, the operative reads aloud. Witnesses describe a small, masked commander leading 3 others with combat efficiency inconsistent with any known ANBU squad roster. Danzo's single visible eye narrows slightly, studying the report with the patient, calculating attention of a man who has spent decades collecting exactly this kind of anomaly. How many incidents does this make now? He asks. 7 confirmed over the past 18 months, Danzo-sama, the operative replies. Always unregistered. Always untraceable to any standard mission log. Always effective. And always, Danzo murmurs, setting the report down with deliberate care, operating with Hiruzen's tacit knowledge, if not his direct authorization. He is quiet for a long moment, turning something over in his mind, a suspicion that has been building, slowly and patiently, for over a year now. Ever since the first whispers of an unregistered fox-masked commander began surfacing in mission debriefs that were never supposed to reach his desk at all. Find out who is behind that mask, Danzo says finally. Quietly. I want to know exactly what my old friend Hiruzen has been hiding from this village's council, and exactly how long he's imagined he could keep it hidden from me. The operative bows and disappears into the shadows of the complex, leaving Danzo alone with his thoughts and the small, circled line of the report still sitting on his desk. What if Naruto led a secret ANBU squad no one knew existed? Absolutely not, Hiruzen says, setting down his pipe with more force than the moment strictly requires. I will not risk exposing Squad Zero's existence over a scheduling inconvenience. Across the desk, a senior jonin named Toryun, one of the very small handful of people in the village who knows Squad Zero exists at all, though even he doesn't know the identity of its commander, folds his arms with the patient stubbornness of a man who has clearly rehearsed this argument more than once. It's not a scheduling inconvenience, Hokage-sama, Toryun says. The genin graduation ceremony is a formal village event. Family members attend. Council representatives attend. If Kitsune is meant to maintain his cover as a failing academy student, then his cover requires him to actually be a student who graduates like every other student in his year. Pulling him from the ceremony at the last minute, or worse, having him miss it entirely because of a mission conflict, draws exactly the kind of attention we've spent 3 years avoiding. Then we adjust the mission schedule around the ceremony, Hiruzen says. With respect, Hokage-sama, we've already adjusted around 2 exams. A sparring evaluation, and now a formal ceremony in the span of 6 weeks. At what point does the squad's actual mission output start suffering because its commander is busy failing tests on purpose? Hiruzen is quiet for a long moment, and the truth of Toryun's point sits heavily in the room. This is the exact tension the third Hokage anticipated 3 years ago when he first made his impossible offer to a bloody 10-year-old boy in this same office, and it is a tension that has only grown. Sharper as Naruto's genin class inches closer to actual field deployment. There is another option, Torian says carefully, that I suspect you already know I'm going to suggest. Pull him from the academy entirely, Hiruzen says flatly. It solves the scheduling conflict permanently, Torian points out. No more juggling exams and missions. No more risk of a classmate noticing something he shouldn't. Squad Zero operates at full capacity without a commander who has to split his attention between Black Ops missions and chakra theory homework. And it also removes the single most effective piece of cover this operation has ever had, Hiruzen counters. A boy who graduates as a genin, gets placed on a normal team, trains under a normal jonin sensei, and appears in every way to be exactly what his file says he is. That is worth more to this village's security than anything Squad Zero could accomplish operating in a vacuum. The moment Naruto stops being a visible, ordinary genin, questions start getting asked about where he went. Questions I cannot afford, and questions Danzo would seize on immediately. At the mention of that name, Torian's expression sobers considerably. You believe he's still investigating the Fox Mask reports? I know he is, Hiruzen says grimly. Which is exactly why I need Naruto's cover more airtight now than ever, not less. He graduates. He gets placed on a team. He plays the part of an ordinary genin as convincingly as he's played the part of a failing student, and Squad Zero continues operating in the narrow windows that leaves us. Torian sighs, clearly unconvinced but equally clearly out of arguments that will actually move the Hokage. Then I'd suggest, at minimum, briefing the boy on exactly how much is riding on his performance at that ceremony. One slip, one moment where Kitsune's reflexes show through Naruto's, in front of the wrong witness, and every precaution you've taken for 3 years becomes worthless. Hiruzen's gaze drifts toward the window, toward the village spread out beyond it, unaware of everything happening in its own shadows. Believe me, he murmurs. I'm aware. Naruto finds out about the conversation that evening, delivered secondhand through Byako during a briefing in the hidden chamber, and his reaction is not what any of his teammates expect. So basically, he says slowly, processing it, I have to do both. Still, you have to do both better, Byako corrects. The old man's making the case that your cover as a genin is worth protecting even at the cost of squad efficiency, which means every single thing you do at that graduation ceremony, every sparring match, every conversation, every moment someone might be watching, needs to look completely, boringly normal. Naruto scrubs a hand over his face, exhaustion from the past week still sitting heavy behind his eyes. I've been doing completely, boringly normal for 3 years. You've been doing it for an academy full of kids who've never had a reason to look closely, Suzu points out gently. The ceremony's different. Council members attend sometimes. Clan representatives. People whose entire job is noticing things that don't add up. And Sasuke, Ibaraki signs, the movement quick and pointed. The chamber goes quiet for a moment. He's noticed something, Naruto admits, the words coming out reluctantly. I don't know how much. But he's been watching me differently the past week or two. That taijutsu spar against Kiba, the pivot I couldn't quite hide, he saw it. I know he saw it. Byaku's pale eyes narrow slightly. How much of a problem is that, realistically? He's a genin candidate. What's he actually going to do, report you to the Hokage for having good footwork? You don't know Sasuke, Naruto says, and there's something almost rueful in his voice. He doesn't let go of a question once he's decided it matters. If he thinks something's off about me, he's not going to stop watching until he figures out exactly what. Then the solution is simple, Suzu says. Give him a mundane explanation before he builds an elaborate one himself. People fill silence with their own conclusions, and those conclusions are usually worse than the truth. If he asks you directly, have an answer ready that satisfies him without confirming anything. Naruto considers this, turning it over. Like what? Extra training, Byako suggests. Tell him you've been practicing on your own, secretly, because you were embarrassed about being dead last. It's believable. It fits the story everyone already has about you, desperate to prove yourself, willing to put in hours nobody sees. And it explains a sudden improvement without explaining where it actually came from. It's a good plan. Simple, plausible, exactly the kind of lie that hides in plain sight because it doesn't ask anyone to believe anything extraordinary. Naruto nods slowly, filing it away. Fine, he says. I'll use it if he asks. But that still leaves the actual problem, the ceremony itself, and every eye that's going to be on every graduating student that day. Then we make sure your performance that day is flawless in exactly the way a failing student's performance should be flawless, Suzu says. Not too good. Not too bad. Precisely, deliberately mediocre. Naruto lets out a short, humorless laugh. You're telling me I need to train to fail convincingly. I'm telling you, Suzu says, not unkindly, that the next several days are going to be the most important acting job of your life. And we're going to make sure you're ready for it. What follows is, by any reasonable measure, one of the strangest training montages Squad Zero has ever undertaken. Because for the first time in 3 years, Naruto isn't training to become more skilled. He's training to hide exactly how skilled he already is. The first evening, Bayako sets up a series of sparring drills specifically designed to test Naruto's ability to lose convincingly. It sounds simple. It is, in practice, brutally difficult. Again, Bayako says, circling him in the dim light of the hidden chamber's training area. This time, don't overcorrect. You threw that last fall a full second too early. A real failing student wouldn't see the strike coming until it actually landed. Naruto resets, shakes out his shoulders, and lets Bayako come at him again. This time, when her strike lands against his shoulder, he stumbles the right amount, at the right moment, with the right expression of genuine surprise rather than performed clumsiness. Better, Bayako allows. But your recovery was too fast. Someone who actually got hit that hard would take longer to get back up. I'm trying to fail at failing convincingly, Naruto mutters, rubbing his shoulder. Do you understand how backwards that sentence is? Welcome to the job, Suzu calls from where she's watching, arms crossed, a small trace of amusement in her voice despite the seriousness of the exercise. Half of what makes Squad Zero work isn't the fighting, it's the performance around it. They run the drill another dozen times that night, and by the end of it, Naruto has relearned something he first mastered nearly 2 years ago, but has apparently let slip in the exhaustion of the past week. The specific, deliberate art of losing on purpose, in a way that looks nothing like losing on purpose. The second evening focuses on the transformation jutsu, the single technique Naruto has failed most consistently and most visibly in front of his entire class. This one's actually funny, if you think about it, Bayako says, watching Naruto run through the hand seals with exaggerated concentration, producing yet another lumpy, misshapen transformation that draws a genuine laugh from Ibaraki, silent as ever but clearly amused. You're one of the most precise operatives in this squad, and you've spent a year deliberately botching one of the most basic academy techniques there is. It's harder than it sounds, Naruto grumbles, dispelling the failed transformation. Do you know how much concentration it takes to mess up a jutsu on purpose without it looking like you're messing it up on purpose? We're aware, Suzu says dryly. That's why we're here helping you practice failing. Which, for the record, remains the strangest sentence I've said in 3 years of this job. Despite the tension underlying everything, Danzo's growing suspicion, the still raw memory of Naruto's first kill less than 2 weeks old, the ever-present risk of exposure, there's something almost lighthearted about these training sessions, a rare pocket of levity in lives that carry far too much weight most days. Squad Zero doesn't often get to laugh together. Tonight, watching their commander deliberately, painstakingly practice being bad at something they do. If you've been following this series for the tension and stakes, don't worry, that's coming right back in full force. But moments like this matter too, because they're exactly what makes Squad Zero's bond feel earned rather than assumed. Make sure you're subscribed, because these small human moments are about to be tested in ways none of these 4 are ready for. The third evening, the training takes a different, more serious turn. Hiruzen himself arrives at the hidden chamber, a rare occurrence given the risks of the Hokage being seen anywhere near Squad Zero's operations, and gathers all 4 members for a briefing that has nothing to do with sparring drills or transformation jutsu. I want to discuss what happens after the ceremony, he says, settling into the room's single worn chair with the weariness of a man carrying more burdens than his office alone accounts for. Team placements are finalized within the week. Naruto, once you're assigned to a Genin squad, your Jonin sensei becomes another variable we need to account for. Do we know who I'm likely to be assigned to? Naruto asks. Placements aren't finalized, Hiruzen says, but I can tell you the instructors under serious consideration for your year's strongest candidates are experienced enough that some of them will notice things an academy instructor might not. If you're placed with a particularly perceptive jonin, the margin for error in maintaining your cover narrows considerably. Then maybe we should try to influence the placement, Byako suggests. Steer him toward a sensei less likely to look too closely. Hiruzen shakes his head slowly. Manipulating team placements carries its own risks. It would require calling in favors that draw exactly the kind of attention we're trying to avoid, and if anyone later realizes Naruto's placement was engineered rather than organic, it raises more questions than it answers. No, we accept whatever placement comes, and we prepare Naruto to manage whichever sensei he's assigned. So I just have to be ready for anyone, Naruto says. You have to be ready for someone considerably more observant than Irika, Hiruzen says frankly. Jonin sensei are selected specifically for their ability to evaluate a genin's true potential. It is, in some ways, the opposite of everything your academy performance has been built around. Naruto absorbs this, the weight of it settling uncomfortably. 3 years of careful, practiced mediocrity. And now he's about to be placed under the direct daily supervision of someone whose entire job is seeing past exactly that kind of performance. There's something else, Hiruzen continues, and something in his tone shifts, becomes more careful, more deliberate. I've been giving thought to Genma's comments about your fighting style, and to the question you asked me about others who came before you. The room goes very still. I'm not going to tell you everything tonight, Hiruzen says, anticipating the protest before Naruto can voice it. But I will tell you this much, 15 years ago, before any of you were born, I authorized a similar operation. A single child, orphaned by circumstances not unlike your own, trained in secret to operate outside official channels for missions this village couldn't risk exposing. What happened to him? Naruto asked quietly. Hiruzen's gaze grows distant, and for a moment, the weight of decades settles visibly across his features. He was skilled. Perhaps more naturally gifted than any operative I've trained before or since. And he was discovered, not by an enemy of the village, but by someone within it who saw an opportunity rather than a person. Danzo, Naruto says. It isn't a question. Danzo approached him directly, Hiruzen confirms. Made him promises about purpose and belonging that I, in my caution, had perhaps failed to offer clearly enough myself. The boy defected to Root within the year. I lost him entirely, not to death, but to an organization whose methods I have spent decades trying to counterbalance. Is he still alive? Naruto asks. As far as I know, Hiruzen says quietly. Though the person Danzo shaped him into bears very little resemblance to the child I once trained. The silence that follows is heavy with implication. Naruto glances at Ibaraki, and something passes between them. An unspoken understanding of exactly how close that fate might have come for him too, if Hiruzen hadn't intervened when he did. That's why you're so insistent I never engaged Danzo directly, Naruto says slowly. That's precisely why, Hiruzen confirms. I will not lose a second operative to that man's ambitions. Whatever happens after your placement, whatever sensei you're assigned, whatever suspicion Sasuke Uchiha or anyone else develops about you, none of it frightens me nearly as much as the possibility of Danzo learning your identity before I'm prepared to protect you from the consequences of that discovery. Naruto nods slowly, the gravity of the conversation settling into his bones alongside everything else this week has already asked of him. I won't engage him, he says. You have my word. Good, Hiruzen says, rising from the chair with visible effort. Now, get some rest, all of you. The ceremony is in 4 days. And I need every one of you at your absolute best, in whichever role each of you is playing that day. The 4th day arrives faster than anyone in that chamber feels prepared for. The academy courtyard is decorated in the modest, cheerful way graduation ceremonies always are, simple banners, a small gathering of proud family members, instructors standing at attention as Irika prepares to call out the names of every student who has passed their final evaluations. Naruto stands among his classmates, wearing the same orange and black jacket the entire village associates with that loud kid, his headband freshly tied, his expression carefully calibrated into a mixture of nervous excitement and barely contained pride, exactly the expression a genuinely struggling student would wear on the day he finally, against considerable odds, manages to graduate. It's a good performance. It's always a good performance, because Naruto has had 3 years of practice perfecting it. But today, for the first time, he's aware of exactly how many eyes might be watching more closely than usual. Sasuke stands several places down the line, arms crossed, dark eyes occasionally drifting toward Naruto with an expression that gives away considerably less than his thoughts actually contain. Uzumaki, Naruto, Iruka calls, and Naruto steps forward, forcing a wide, slightly awkward grin onto his face as he accepts his headband with exaggerated enthusiasm, pumping a fist in the air to a smattering of polite applause and a few knowing chuckles from classmates who remember exactly how many times this particular student nearly didn't make it to this moment at all. "Believe it!" he shouts, the familiar catchphrase drawing genuine laughter this time, and he catches Iruka's eye for just a moment. Iruka, who has watched this boy's entire academy career with more investment than most instructors manage, offering him a small, genuinely proud nod that makes something twist uncomfortably in Naruto's chest. He deserves that pride, he tells himself, even if Iruka doesn't know the full reason why he's earned it. The ceremony proceeds through the rest of the names, team placements announced in sequence, and Naruto's stomach tightens as his own placement approaches, because whichever sensei he's assigned, that person is about to become the single most dangerous variable in maintaining his double life. Team 7, Iruka announces. Uzumaki Naruto, Harino Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke. Your Jonin instructor will be Hatake Kakashi. If you know anything about this world, that name alone should be setting off alarm bells, because Kakashi Hatake is not just any Jonin sensei. He is, by wide consensus, one of the single most perceptive shinobi in the entire village, a former ANBU captain whose reputation for noticing exactly the details other people miss is legendary even among his peers. Naruto's stomach drops. Of every possible sensei in the entire village, the one thing worse than being placed with a particularly perceptive Jonin is being placed with a former ANBU captain whose entire career was built on exactly the kind of observational skills Squad Zero's cover depends on evading. And to make matters worse, as if the universe has decided today is the day to test every single precaution Naruto's spent 3 years building, he's now placed on the exact same team as Sasuke Uchiha, the one classmate in his entire year sharp enough to have already noticed something is wrong. If your stomach just dropped right along with Naruto's, you're reacting exactly the way you should, because this team placement is about to become the single greatest threat to Squad Zero's secrecy that this series has introduced so far. Make sure that subscribe button is hit, because things are about to get a whole lot more complicated. The ceremony concludes shortly after, students dispersing into small clusters with their new teammates, family members swarming in to offer congratulations. Naruto finds himself standing somewhat awkwardly beside Sakura, who is practically vibrating with excitement at being placed on the same team as Sasuke, and Sasuke himself, who regards the whole arrangement with his usual quiet, unreadable calm. Guess we're stuck together now, Naruto says, forcing the easy grin back onto his face, trying to project exactly the kind of harmless enthusiasm his classmates expect from him. Try not to slow us down, Sasuke says, not unkindly, but with the faint edge of someone who has clearly already decided Naruto's academy reputation is an accurate reflection of his abilities. It should sting, honestly. It's meant to sting. The casual dismissal of a rival who genuinely believes himself vastly superior. But there's something almost funny about it now, given everything Naruto knows that Sasuke doesn't, and he has to work to keep the amusement from showing on his face. Wouldn't dream of it, he says instead, keeping his tone light. Sasuke's dark eyes linger on him a moment longer than the exchange warrants. The same lingering attention Naruto's noticed building for weeks now, before he turns and walks away without further comment. Sakura, oblivious to the undercurrent, immediately launches into an excited monologue about Kakashi's reputation, about how lucky they are to be placed under such a famous Jonin, about how this practically guarantees they'll become an elite team. Naruto nods along, offering appropriately enthusiastic responses, while internally running through every scrap of information Squad Zero's intelligence network has compiled on Hatake Kakashi. It's not comforting reading. Former ANBU captain. Extensive combat experience against S-rank threats. A reputation, even among seasoned shinobi, for spotting inconsistencies other instructors would never catch. If there is a single worst-case scenario for who could have been assigned as Naruto's direct daily supervisor, Kakashi Hatake sits very near the top of that list. That evening, back in the hidden chamber, Naruto delivers this information to the rest of Squad Zero with the particular flatness of someone still processing exactly how badly today's variables have stacked against him. Kakashi Hatake, Bayako repeats slowly, absorbing the name with visible concern. Yeah, Naruto says. He served directly under the fourth Hokage, Suzu adds grimly, pulling from her own knowledge of the man's history. Sharingan user, despite not being a natural-born Uchiha, some kind of transplant, from what I understand. If anyone in this village could pick apart your performance as a failing genin, it's someone with that kind of tactical eye. And Sasuke's on the same team, Naruto adds. Which means I've now got two people watching me closely instead of just one of whom already suspects something's off, and the other whose entire professional reputation is built on noticing exactly the kind of thing I've spent 3 years hiding. Ibaraki signs something quick and pointed, and Bayako translates without needing to be asked. He's asking if this changes the plan. Naruto considers this for a long moment, staring at the small fire lighting their hidden chamber, weighing everything the day has revealed against everything Squad Zero still needs to accomplish. It changes the margin for error, he says finally. Not the plan. I still have to graduate. I still have to serve on this team, train under this sensei, maintain every part of the cover the old man's built for me. I just have to be more careful about it than I've ever had to be before. That's a lot to ask of someone recovering from their first kill less than 2 weeks ago, Suzu says quietly. I know, Naruto admits. But it's not like the mission requirements are going to lower themselves because the timing's inconvenient. The chamber falls quiet for a moment, each of them absorbing the reality of the situation. Their commander, barely into his teenage years, now navigating an active Black Ops squad, a genin team under an unusually perceptive sensei, a classmate who's already begun asking questions, and, hovering over all of it, the growing, patient suspicion of a man who has already claimed one child operative for his own ambitions, and would very likely do the same again given the chance. For what it's worth, Bayako says finally, breaking the tension, if anyone can manage all of that at once, it's you. We've watched you carry worse. Naruto huffs a tired, grateful laugh. That's not exactly reassuring. It's not meant to be reassuring, Bayako says, a small, rare smile tugging at her mouth. It's meant to be true. The following week passes in a careful, exhausting balancing act. Team 7's early days under Kakashi's supervision unfold largely as expected, the notorious bell test. Kakashi's characteristically tardy arrivals, the slow, grudging process of 3 very different genin learning to function as an actual team. Naruto plays his part with practiced precision, struggling visibly with exercises he's long since mastered, feigning frustration at challenges Squad Zero's training rendered trivial years ago, maintaining the exact careful mediocrity his cover has always required. But Kakashi, true to his reputation, notices things. It's subtle at first. A raised eyebrow during a tracking exercise where Naruto moves just a fraction too efficiently before catching himself. A brief pause during a sparring evaluation where Naruto's block lands with more precision than his file suggests he should possess. Small moments, easily dismissed individually, but the kind of moments that a man with Kakashi's training instinctively files away, cross-references, begins quietly assembling into a pattern. He doesn't say anything. Not yet. But there's a particular, considering look Kakashi occasionally directs at Naruto during training exercises. The look of a man who has spotted an inconsistency and is patiently waiting to see whether it repeats before he decides it's worth investigating further. Sasuke's suspicion, meanwhile, only sharpens with proximity. Being on the same team means being around Naruto constantly now, training together, eating together, sitting through mission briefings together, and every day provides new small opportunities for Sasuke to notice the gaps between the boy everyone thinks they know and the person actually standing in front of him. It comes to a head on the 6th day of Team 7's formation, during a routine training exercise in one of the village's outer training grounds. Kakashi has set up a simple obstacle course intended to test reaction speed and chakra control simultaneously. Nothing especially difficult. The kind of exercise meant to establish a baseline for each genin's current abilities. Sakura goes first, completing the course with competent, unremarkable efficiency. Sasuke follows, moving through with the sharp, controlled precision the entire village has come to expect from an Uchiha prodigy. Then it's Naruto's turn, and this is where things go sideways. He starts the course the way he's practiced, deliberately clumsy, exaggerating small mistakes, playing exactly the role he's perfected over 3 years of careful performance. But halfway through, navigating a section that requires precise chakra control along a narrow beam, his foot catches on an uneven section of terrain that genuinely, unexpectedly threatens to send him tumbling into the ravine below. Instinct overrides performance in the space of half a second. His body reacts the way 3 years of ANBU-level training has conditioned it to react to a genuine threat of injury, a perfectly controlled recovery, weight redistributing with an efficiency that would look entirely unremarkable coming from a seasoned chunin, but looks utterly, glaringly out of place coming from the class dead last. The recovery happens in less than a second. It's clean. It's precise. And it is completely, unmistakably wrong for the persona Naruto has spent 3 years building. Kakashi's visible eye narrows slightly, watching the whole sequence unfold with the particular sharpness of a man who has just confirmed something he's been quietly suspecting for days. Sasuke, watching from the sidelines, goes very still. Naruto, realizing half a beat too late exactly what just happened, immediately overcorrects, stumbling forward with exaggerated clumsiness, crashing gracelessly onto the far side of the beam in a display so overdone it borders on parody, groaning theatrically as he picks himself back up. "Ow, okay, that one almost got me," he says, forcing a sheepish grin, rubbing the back of his head in the familiar, practiced gesture that has smoothed over 100 similar close calls before. Sakura laughs. The moment, for her, has already passed without a second thought. But Kakashi doesn't laugh. He watches Naruto brush dirt off his jacket with an expression that gives away almost nothing, the same practiced neutrality Naruto himself has spent years perfecting, and simply says in a mild, almost offhand tone that somehow carries considerably more weight than its casual delivery suggests, "Interesting recovery, Naruto. You'll have to show me that again sometime." It isn't a compliment. It isn't quite an accusation either. It's something far more unsettling than either. The sound of a man quietly, deliberately letting Naruto know that he's noticed, without yet showing his hand about what he intends to do with that knowledge. Naruto's stomach drops straight through the floor. If you've been waiting for the moment Kitsune's carefully constructed mask really starts to crack under pressure, this is it. Because in the space of one careless recovery on a training beam, Naruto has just handed his own Jonin sensei, one of the single most perceptive shinobi in the entire village, undeniable proof that something about him doesn't add up. And Sasuke Uchiha, still watching silently from the sidelines, has just witnessed exactly the same thing. It starts, as these things always seem to, with a scroll delivered at the worst possible moment. Team 7 has just wrapped up a routine D-rank mission, retrieving a wayward cat that has, for the 3rd time this month, escaped from a wealthy client's estate and taken up residence in the forest surrounding the village. Sakura is nursing several fresh scratches with theatrical complaints. Sasuke maintains his usual detached silence. Naruto, playing his part, has spent the better part of an hour loudly insisting the cat had it out for him personally. "That thing bit me on purpose," he grumbles, examining a small puncture wound on his hand as the 4 of them make their way back toward the village proper. "It's a cat, Naruto," Sakura says, exasperated. "It doesn't have a personal vendetta against you. You didn't see the way it looked at me before it bit down." Kakashi, walking a step ahead with his ever-present orange book held loosely in one hand, glances back with the faint, unreadable amusement he's taken to directing at Naruto more and more over the past week. "Cats are excellent judges of character," he says mildly. "Perhaps it simply recognized something in you worth being suspicious of." There's a weight to that comment that only Naruto seems to fully register, a careful double meaning tucked into an otherwise throwaway joke. He forces a laugh, scratching the back of his head. "Yeah, well, maybe it just has bad taste." It's at that exact moment, as the 4 of them cross into the village's outer district, that a hawk descends from the afternoon sky, circling once before landing with practiced precision on a rooftop just ahead of their path. Naruto's stomach tightens instantly. He recognizes that hawk. Everyone in Squad 0 recognizes that hawk. It carries messages only for Kitsune, sealed in a cipher that would mean absolutely nothing to anyone else who happened to intercept it. "I'll catch up," Naruto says quickly, already peeling off from the group. Forgot I told Irika-sensei I'd help him with something. It's a thin excuse, and he knows it the moment it leaves his mouth. Sakura barely registers it, already deep in conversation with herself about dinner plans. But Sasuke's dark eyes track Naruto's sudden departure with the particular, patient attention of someone cataloging one more small inconsistency to add to a list that's already grown uncomfortably long. Kakashi says nothing at all, which is somehow worse. Naruto retrieves the message from the hawk in the privacy of a narrow alley 3 streets over, breaking the seal with practiced speed. The contents make his blood run cold. Bayako wounded. Extraction team compromised near grass border. Immediate response required. Suzu. He reads it twice, then a third time, willing the words to mean something different than what they clearly mean. Bayako, steady, unshakable Bayako, who has talked him through nightmares about his first kill and drilled sparring technique into him with the patience of an older sister he never had, is wounded, in the field, without her commander. He doesn't hesitate. 15 minutes later, changed out of his academy gear and into his tactical uniform, mask fixed in place, Naruto meets Suzu and Ibaraki at the Hidden Chamber's emergency rendezvous point, both of them already geared up and grim-faced. What happened? He demands, voice flat with the particular control that only barely masks real fear underneath. Extraction mission near the grass border went wrong, Suzu reports, already moving toward the exit tunnel, Naruto and Ibaraki falling into step beside her. We were pulling out an informant who'd fed us intelligence on the remaining pieces of Orochimaru's old research network, the same one connected to the cache we hit 2 weeks ago. Bayako was on point. The extraction site was compromised. Ambush. How bad? Bad enough that she used an emergency signal instead of walking it off, Suzu says grimly. You know she doesn't send those unless it's serious. Naruto's jaw tightens beneath his mask. He does know. In 3 years, Bayako has called for emergency extraction exactly once before tonight, and that time, she'd nearly bled out waiting for the response team to arrive. Ibaraki, you're with me on entry, Naruto says, already shifting into command mode, the exhaustion and fear compartmentalized somewhere he can deal with later. Suzu, you're on medical the second we make contact. Full speed. We don't have time to be careful about being seen tonight. The 3 of them move. If you're wondering how exactly Naruto plans to explain a sudden absence from an evening he was already supposed to be free for, no missions scheduled, no academy obligations, nothing on his calendar that would account for slipping away in the middle of the night, you're about to watch him find out that some problems can't be solved with a clever cover story. Sometimes you just have to hope nobody's paying close enough attention to notice you're gone. Unfortunately for Naruto, someone is paying very close attention indeed. Kakashi Hatake has not survived this long, in a profession that kills the careless and rewards the observant, by ignoring inconsistencies simply because they're inconvenient to investigate. 3 years as an ANBU captain trained a particular kind of vigilance into him, the habit of noticing small details and quietly, patiently following them until they either resolve into something explainable, or reveal themselves as something worth real concern. Naruto Uzumaki has, over the past 2 weeks, accumulated considerably more of the second kind of detail than the first. That evening, after dismissing his team for the day, Kakashi does something he rarely bothers doing for genin under his supervision. He follows one of them, at a discreet distance, curious to see where a supposedly unremarkable errand actually leads. What he finds, tailing Naruto's suspiciously purposeful path through the village's back alleys and drainage routes, is not an errand at all. It is a boy who moves through Konoha's hidden infrastructure with the practiced, unhesitating familiarity of someone who has done this exact route dozens of times before, ducking through a gap in a fence that most shinobi wouldn't even notice exists, dropping silently into a drainage tunnel with a fluidity that has absolutely nothing to do with the clumsy, overeager persona Kakashi has watched this boy perform for 2 weeks straight. Kakashi's visible eye narrows behind his mask. He doesn't follow further. Some instinct, honed over years of navigating the village's own political shadows, warns him this particular thread might lead somewhere he's not authorized to pull on without consequence. Instead, he makes a decision that will ripple through the rest of this story in ways either he nor Naruto can fully anticipate yet. He returns to the Hokage's tower, and requests, through official channels, access to Naruto Uzumaki's complete personnel file. The request lands on Hiruzen's desk the following morning, and the moment his aide delivers it, the third Hokage feels something cold settle into his chest. Kakashi Hatake has formally requested Naruto's full file, the aide reports, including any sealed or restricted sections. Hiruzen sets down his pipe slowly. Did he specify a reason? Standard sensei due diligence, according to the requests, the aide says. He's citing his responsibility to properly evaluate a genin under his direct supervision. It's within his rights to request it, Hokage-sama. Refusing without cause would be unusual enough to draw its own attention. Hiruzen is quiet for a long moment, weighing a decision that has no good options attached to it. Refuse the request outright, and Kakashi, sharp as he is, will immediately recognize the refusal itself as confirmation that something is being hidden. Granted in full, and the sealed sections of Naruto's file, however carefully constructed to obscure Squad Zero's existence, might still contain enough anomalies for a mind as perceptive as Kakashi's to piece together an uncomfortably accurate picture. Prepare the standard file, Hiruzen says finally. The public version. Academy records, standard evaluations, medical history excluding anything classified. And the sealed sections? Remain sealed, Hiruzen says firmly. Inform Kakashi that certain portions of Naruto's file fall under Hokage-level classification for reasons of personal security, given his status as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. That explanation should satisfy him without inviting further inquiry. Every Jinchuriki's file carries similar protections, and Kakashi knows that as well as anyone. The aide nods and departs, leaving Hiruzen alone with a familiar, weary dread. It's a reasonable deflection. A believable one. But Kakashi Hatake did not earn his reputation by accepting the first believable explanation offered to him, and something tells Hiruzen this particular thread is far from finished unspooling. Meanwhile, at the grass border, Squad Zero's emergency extraction is unfolding into exactly the kind of chaos that emergency extractions tend to become. Naruto, Ibaraki, and Suzu arrive at the compromised rendezvous point to find Byako pinned down behind the collapsed remains of a stone bridge, exchanging fire with at least 4 hostile shinobi whose coordinated attack pattern suggests considerably more training than the average bandit or mercenary group. Status, Naruto demands, dropping into cover beside her, already assessing the wound along her side that's soaking through her tactical gear. Compromised the second we made contact with the informant, Byako gasps, pale eyes still active despite clear exhaustion, chakra visibly straining from blood loss. These aren't random hostiles, Naruto. They knew exactly where and when we'd be. Someone leaked the extraction point. Naruto's stomach tightens at the implication. The informant? Dead, Byako says grimly. Killed before we even made contact. This was a trap from the start. Suzu is already working on Byako's wound, applying pressure with practiced efficiency while Ibaraki holds the perimeter, keeping the hostile shinobi's attention divided. Naruto peers over the edge of their cover, taking stock of the attackers, 4 figures in dark, unmarked gear, moving with the coordinated precision of a trained unit rather than opportunistic mercenaries. These are professionals, Naruto murmurs. Someone hired real muscle for this. Or someone with real resources decided this was worth a real investment, Suzu says, not looking up from her work. Whoever's protecting what's left of Orochimaru's old network clearly isn't interested in losing any more assets to Squad Zero. Naruto's jaw tightens beneath his mask. Ibaraki, on my signal, draw 2 of them toward the ravine. Suzu, get Byako stable enough to move the second there's an opening. I'll take point on the remaining 2. Ibaraki signs a quick affirmative, already shifting position. What follows is one of the most brutal, fast-moving engagements Squad Zero has faced since its formation, 4 highly trained hostiles against a squad operating with 1 member already wounded and a commander, whose focus is split, uncomfortably, between the fight in front of him and the fear coiled tight in his chest for his teammates' safety. Naruto engages the first hostile with a speed and precision that would utterly shatter every careful, deliberate performance of mediocrity he's cultivated over the past 2 weeks. But there's no one here to perform for, no Kakashi watching with quiet, calculating suspicion, no Sasuke cataloging inconsistencies. Here in the dark, with his teammates' blood soaking into the dirt beside him, Naruto fights the way 3 years of training actually built him to fight, efficient, ruthless, utterly without hesitation. The hostile goes down hard, disabled rather than killed. Naruto has learned enough from his first kill 2 weeks ago to recognize the difference matters, even in the heat of a desperate fight. The second hostile proves more difficult, forcing Naruto into a prolonged exchange of strikes that tests every bit of his conditioning, but he emerges from it with a shallow cut along his forearm and his opponent unconscious in the mud. Across the ravine, Ibaraki's silent efficiency handles the remaining 2 attackers with brutal economy, buying just enough time for Suzu to finish stabilizing Byaku's wound. Clear, Naruto calls, breathing hard, surveying the aftermath. Suzu, can she move? She can move, Suzu confirms, helping Byaku to her feet with careful support. But she needs proper treatment within the hour or that wound's going to get considerably worse. Then we move now, Naruto says, already shifting to support Byaku's other side. Fastest route back to the village. We deal with questions about who set this trap later. The journey back is tense, urgent, and considerably longer than any of them would like given Byaku's condition. By the time they reach the Hidden Chambers medical station, the eastern sky has already begun lightening toward dawn, and Naruto is faced with the uncomfortable reality that Team 7 training begins in less than 3 hours. Go, Byaku says weakly as Suzu works to properly close and treat her wound. I'll be fine. Suzu's got this handled. I'm not just going to leave. You have to, Byaku cuts in, her voice firmer than her current condition should really allow. If Kakashi's already suspicious, missing training the morning after an unexplained absence is exactly the kind of pattern that confirms whatever he's already started piecing together. Go be a genin. I'll still be here when you're done. Naruto hesitates, torn between the exhaustion pulling at every part of him and the responsibility he feels toward a teammate who has been wounded protecting a mission he ordered. She's right, Suzu says, not looking up from her work. I've got her stable. Go. Reluctantly, achingly, Naruto pulls off his mask, changes back into his academy gear, and makes his way home through the lightning streets, exhaustion sitting so heavy in his limbs that every step feels like wading through deep water. He gets perhaps 40 minutes of actual sleep before it's time to report for Team 7 training. If you think a boy running on 40 minutes of sleep after a nighttime firefight can convincingly maintain a performance of ordinary genin clumsiness in front of the single most perceptive Jonin sensei in the village, you already know exactly where this is heading. Make sure you're subscribed, because Naruto's exhaustion is about to collide directly with Kakashi's mounting suspicion in a way that neither of them can walk back afterward. Team 7's training ground that morning is quiet, the early light still soft and gray as Sakura arrives first, followed shortly by Sasuke. Naruto stumbles in nearly 10 minutes late, dark circles heavy under his eyes, movements sluggish in a way that has nothing to do with performance, and everything to do with genuine, bone-deep exhaustion. You look terrible, Sakura says, not unkindly, more concerned than critical. Rough night, Naruto mutters, and for once, it's the truest thing he's said to either of his teammates in weeks. Kakashi arrives precisely on time for once, a rarity that somehow makes his punctuality feel more ominous than his usual tardiness, and takes in Naruto's exhausted state with a single, sweeping glance that misses absolutely nothing. Rough night, he echoes, mild as ever, though there's something considerably sharper lurking beneath the casual tone. Anything you'd like to share, Naruto? Just didn't sleep well, sensei, Naruto says, forcing brightness into his voice that costs him more effort than it should. Guess I was thinking about training too much. Kakashi says, in the particular tone of a man who has heard a great many convenient explanations over the years and finds this one wanting. Well, since you're apparently so eager to train, let's put that enthusiasm to good use. What follows is, by design or coincidence, one of the more physically demanding training sessions Team 7 has undertaken since its formation: extended chakra control exercises, sparring drills, an endurance run through the surrounding forest that pushes every genin stamina to its limit. For Sakura and Sasuke, it's simply a difficult morning. For Naruto, running on 40 minutes of sleep after an actual firefight the night before, it becomes a genuine test of whether exhaustion will finally crack the careful performance he's maintained for 3 years. It very nearly does. During a sparring exercise against Sasuke, meant to be a straightforward exchange to evaluate basic taijutsu fundamentals, Naruto's exhausted body, running on pure instinct rather than conscious control, executes a defensive sequence with a fluidity that has absolutely no business coming from someone this tired, deflecting 3 consecutive strikes with the kind of economical, trained precision that belongs to a seasoned operative, not a struggling academy graduate barely 2 weeks into his genin career. Sasuke stops mid-exchange, staring at him. "What was that?" he says. "It isn't really a question." Naruto, catching himself half a second too late, immediately stumbles backward, exaggerating clumsiness with the same overcorrection that's become his default reflex whenever his real training slips through. "What was what?" "I just got lucky, I guess." "That wasn't luck." Sasuke's voice is flat, certain, all patience for polite deflection finally exhausted. "That's the 3rd time in 2 weeks I've watched you move like that and then immediately pretend you didn't. I want to know what's actually going on." The training ground goes quiet. Sakura, catching the tension, glances between the two of them with growing confusion, and Kakashi, standing several paces away, makes no move to intervene, watching the confrontation unfold with the careful, patient stillness of a man very interested in exactly how Naruto handles this moment. Naruto's mind races, exhaustion making it considerably harder than usual to summon the careful deflection Squad Zero rehearse for exactly this scenario. "Look," he says finally, forcing his voice into something that sounds more embarrassed than defensive, "I've been training on my own. At night. Extra practice, okay? I got tired of being the class dead last, so I started putting in hours nobody saw." "That's it. That's the big secret. It's the story Bayako suggested weeks ago, simple, plausible, exactly calibrated to explain sudden improvement without confirming anything extraordinary. But delivered now, exhausted and under real pressure rather than rehearsed and calm, it comes out slightly too defensive, slightly too quick, in a way that a genuinely embarrassed explanation probably wouldn't." Sasuke studies him for a long moment, dark eyes searching for something in Naruto's exhausted expression. Whatever he's looking for, he doesn't quite find it. But he also doesn't push further, at least not here, not now, in front of Sakura and their sensei. "Fine," he says finally, turning away. "Whatever you say. It isn't acceptance. It's postponement," and both of them clearly understand the difference. Kakashi, for his part, says nothing at all about the exchange, but the look he directs at Naruto afterward, thoughtful and unreadable, suggests he's filed this incident away alongside every other small inconsistency he's been quietly collecting since Team 7's formation. That evening, after training finally ends and Naruto drags himself, utterly spent, back toward the hidden chamber to check on Bayako's recovery, Kakashi makes his way to the Hokage's tower for the 2nd time in as many days. "Hokage-sama," he says, settling into the chair across from Hiruzen's desk with the deceptively casual posture of a man about to ask a considerably less casual question. "I received the file you sent regarding Naruto Uzumaki. I appreciate the standard records, but I have some additional questions that fall outside what the public file covers." Hiruzen sets down his pen, meeting Kakashi's gaze with careful neutrality. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that concern a genin under my supervision demonstrating combat instincts considerably beyond his file's documented training history," Kakashi says frankly. "I've watched him execute defensive maneuvers that took me years to properly internalize as an ANBU operative. I've watched him move through the village's back alleys and drainage systems with a familiarity that suggests considerable prior experience navigating hidden infrastructure most genin have no reason to know exists. And this morning, I watched him arrive to training exhausted in a way that has nothing to do with a sleepless night spent worrying about exams." Hiruzen's expression remains carefully composed, though something behind his eyes has gone very still. "You have quite an imagination, Kakashi. I have quite a lot of experience noticing when someone's file doesn't match the person standing in front of me," Kakashi counters, unbothered. "I'm not asking you to confirm anything specific, Hokage-sama. I'm telling you what I've observed, and asking whether there's context I should be aware of, given my responsibility for that boy's safety and development." There's a long, weighted silence. Hiruzen studies the man across from him, a former ANBU captain, someone who has proven his loyalty to this village time and time again, someone who, in another timeline, might have made an excellent addition to Squad Zero's small circle of trusted allies rather than an outside threat to its secrecy. "What I can tell you," Hiruzen says finally, choosing his words with the deliberate care of a man walking a very narrow line, is that Naruto Uzumaki carries responsibilities that extend beyond what his academy file reflects. Responsibilities that are classified at a level I am not currently prepared to disclose, even to his own Jonin-sensei. Kakashi's visible eye narrows slightly. That's a considerable admission, Hokage-sama. It is, Hiruzen agrees. And I am trusting you, as I trust very few people in this village, to accept it without pushing further for details you are not yet cleared to receive. I will tell you this much, and only this much. Whatever you have observed about Naruto's abilities is real, it is intentional, and it exists for reasons that protect this village in ways I am not able to fully explain at this time. Kakashi is quiet for a long moment, processing this. It's not a full answer. It's barely an answer at all, really. But coming from Hiruzen, delivered with this particular gravity, it carries the weight of genuine truth rather than convenient deflection. Is he in danger? Kakashi asks finally. Whatever this is it something that puts a genin under my supervision at risk I should be actively guarding against? There are risks, Hiruzen admits. Risks I am working diligently to manage. But I will tell you plainly, Kakashi, Naruto Uzumaki is considerably more capable of protecting himself than his file suggests, and considerably more valuable to this village's security than his classroom performance would ever indicate. I need you to trust that, for now, without demanding the full picture. Kakashi sits with this for a long moment, weighing decades of institutional trust in the man across from him against every instinct honed by years of noticing exactly the kind of inconsistencies that usually signal danger. I'll trust it, he says finally. For now. But I want it clearly understood, Hokage-sama, that if anything about this situation puts my genin at risk without my knowledge, I will not simply look the other way because you've asked me to. I would expect nothing less from you, Hiruzen says, something like genuine respect threading through his tired voice. That protective instinct is exactly why I have confidence in your placement on that team. Kakashi rises to leave, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, he adds, almost as an afterthought, whatever Naruto's hiding, he's not hiding it particularly well anymore. If I've noticed this much, others will too. Sasuke Uchiha already has. Hiruzen's expression tightens almost imperceptibly. I'm aware, he says quietly. Believe me, I'm aware. Kakashi departs, leaving Hiruzen alone with the weight of a conversation that has bought Squad Zero perhaps a few more weeks of protected secrecy, but has done nothing to address the deeper, more troubling truth underlying everything. Naruto's double life, carefully constructed and meticulously maintained for 3 years, is beginning to show cracks faster than anyone can patch them. Back at the hidden chamber, Naruto finds Bayako resting comfortably, color returning to her face, Suzu's treatment having stabilized the worst of her injury. She manages a tired but genuine smile as he settles into the chair beside her cot. You look worse than I do, she says, voice still weak but steady. And I'm the one who got stabbed. Rough day, Naruto admits, scrubbing a hand over his face. Sasuke cornered me during training. Asked point blank what's going on with me. Bayako's expression sobers. What did you tell him? The training story? Same as we planned. Naruto sighs, leaning back in the chair. I don't think he bought it, not completely. And Kakashi's been watching me like he's cataloging evidence for a case he hasn't decided whether to actually build yet. That's not good, Bayako says quietly. No, Naruto agrees. It's really not. They sit in silence for a moment, the weight of everything. The ambush at the grass border, Bayako's wound, Sasuke's mounting suspicion, Kakashi's careful, patient observation, settling over the hidden chamber like a held breath. Whoever set that trap tonight, Naruto says finally, changing the subject to something that feels, paradoxically, less dangerous than his own unraveling cover story. They knew exactly where and when to hit us. That's not luck. Someone's been tracking Squad Zero's movements. You think it's connected to Danzo, Bayako says. I don't know, Naruto admits. But I don't love the timing. 2 weeks after Genma mentions someone trained under Root before it existed. 2 weeks after Danzo starts formally investigating Fox Mask reports, according to the old man. And now someone with real resources sets a coordinated trap for an extraction team specifically targeting what's left of Orochimaru's research network. You think Danzo's trying to provoke Squad Zero into exposing itself, Bayako says slowly, following the thread. Force a mistake he can use as leverage. Or he's just gathering more evidence, Naruto says grimly. Either way, I don't like how many things are converging on us all at once. Suzu, listening from across the chamber, finally speaks up. There's something else you should know, she says carefully. While you were dealing with Kakashi and Sasuke this morning, I did some digging into the informant who was killed before we even made contact last night. Whoever silenced him did it cleanly. Professional work, the kind of precision that doesn't come from mercenaries or random hostiles. What are you saying? I'm saying, Suzu says, that whoever's cleaning up loose ends connected to Orochimaru's old network is considerably better resourced and better trained than a border censor's rumor network would suggest. This isn't a small operation anymore, Naruto. Someone with real institutional backing is protecting whatever's left of that research. The chamber falls quiet again, the implications settling heavily over all three of them. We need more information before we move again, Naruto says finally, exhaustion and caution warring in his voice. I'll brief the old man tomorrow. For now, he glances at Bayako, still pale despite Suzu's careful treatment. For now everyone rests. That's an order, and this time I actually mean it for myself too. 3 days later, once Bayako has recovered enough to return to light duty and the immediate crisis has settled into a wary, watchful calm, Naruto finds himself back in the Hokage's private office for a full briefing on everything that's transpired. The ambush, Kakashi's pointed questions, Sasuke's mounting suspicion, and the unsettling pattern suggesting someone with real resources is actively protecting Orochimaru's remaining network. Hiruzen listens to the full report with the particular gravity of a man watching several dangerous threads begin to weave together into something considerably larger than any single mission. Kakashi came to me directly, Hiruzen says, once Naruto has finished. Asked pointed questions about inconsistencies he's observed. I gave him the barest acknowledgement that something classified exists, without confirming specifics. How much does he actually suspect? Enough that I don't believe he'll stop watching, Hiruzen admits. But he's agreed, for now, to trust my judgment rather than pursue it further. That trust has a limit, Naruto. I'd advise you not to test it more than absolutely necessary. And Sasuke? Hiruzen's expression grows more troubled. Sasuke Uchiha is not bound by the same institutional trust Kakashi extends me. If he continues pulling on this thread, there's no guarantee where it leads, or who he might involve in that investigation. Naruto absorbs this, the weight of it settling alongside everything else the past week has demanded of him. So what do? We proceed carefully, Hiruzen says. And we prioritize identifying whoever's protecting Orochimaru's remaining network, because that thread now intersects directly with your safety in the field, not just your cover in the village. Two converging pressures, Naruto: exposure at home, and a genuinely dangerous adversary in the field. I need you managing both without either one costing you everything we've built. No pressure, Naruto mutters. Considerable pressure, actually, Hiruzen says, with the faintest, weary ghost of dark humor. But I have never doubted your ability to carry weight most children twice your age would buckle under. I don't intend to start doubting it now. Naruto nods slowly, gathering himself, gathering the exhaustion and fear and grim determination into something he can actually carry forward. There's one more thing, Hiruzen adds, as Naruto turns to leave. The intelligence Suzu gathered about the ambush, the professional precision used to silence your informant. I've had my own people quietly looking into similar patterns over the past several months. There have been at least 3 other unexplained deaths connected to individuals with tangential knowledge of Orochimaru's old research. All handled with the same clean, professional efficiency. You think it's one organization, Naruto says. Not scattered remnants protecting isolated secrets. Something coordinated. I think, Hiruzen says grimly, that we may be dealing with something considerably larger and more organized than anyone anticipated when you first recovered that research cache 3 weeks ago. And I think the coming weeks are going to demand more from Squad Zero than any mission you've undertaken so far. Naruto absorbs this, the weight of it settling over him like a physical thing. We'll be ready, he says, and means it, even as every part of him aches with the accumulated exhaustion of the past several days. I know, Hiruzen says quietly. That's exactly what worries me. That night, walking home through the familiar drainage tunnels under a sky heavy with the promise of rain, Naruto allows himself, for just a few minutes, to simply exist without performing anything for anyone, not the failing genin, not the calm commander, just a tired 13-year-old boy carrying more weight than anyone his age should ever have to carry. He doesn't know yet that 3 streets away, in a modest home on the Uchiha compound's outer edge, Sasuke is lying awake, replaying every strange, inexplicable detail he's collected about his teammate over the past several weeks, slowly, methodically building toward a conclusion he isn't ready to voice out loud but can no longer convince himself to ignore. He doesn't know that across the village, in an underground complex that officially doesn't exist, Danzo Shimura is reviewing a fresh report about a compromised extraction near the grass border, connecting it, correctly, to the same fox-masked commander his people have been quietly tracking for months. And he doesn't know that somewhere beyond the village's borders, in shadows considerably darker than anything Squad Zero has yet encountered, someone with real resources and real patience is beginning to take a very direct interest in the small, unregistered squad that keeps disrupting their carefully protected secrets. 2 Konohas exist tonight, just as they've existed for 3 years now, the village that sees a struggling, ordinary genin, and the hidden world that depends on the extraordinary person underneath. But for the first time since Squad Zero's formation, the walls separating those 2 worlds are showing cracks from every direction at once, and Naruto Uzumaki is running out of hands to hold them all together. What if Naruto led a secret ANBU squad no one knew existed? It begins the way it's supposed to begin, deceptively simple, disarmingly mundane. A modest, slightly rumpled bridge builder named Tazuna stands in the mission assignment room, requesting escort back to his home in Wave Country, insisting the job is nothing more than protection from common bandits. A C-rank escort mission, Kakashi reads from the assignment scroll, one visible eye scanning the details with the faint, practiced skepticism of a man who has learned not to take mission classifications entirely at face value. Should be straightforward enough for your first outside the village. Sakura looks nervously excited. Sasuke maintains his usual detached calm. And Naruto feels something settle uncomfortably in his stomach that has nothing to do with nerves about his first real mission and everything to do with an instinct honed over 3 years of Black Ops experience, an instinct that has learned to recognize exactly the particular, evasive way Tazuna avoids meeting anyone's eyes when he insists there's nothing more dangerous waiting for them than a few common bandits. He says nothing. It isn't his place to say anything, not as Naruto Uzumaki, dead last gen and barely 2 weeks into his career. But he files the observation away regardless, the same careful cataloging instinct Squad Zero drilled into him over years of intelligence-gathering missions. If Kakashi notices the flicker of calculation behind Naruto's usually easy expression, he doesn't comment on it. But he does notice. Kakashi notices most things these days, when it comes to this particular student. The journey to Wave Country unfolds without incident for the first several hours. Pleasant, even, in the way that early mission excitement tends to be before reality reasserts itself. Sakura chatters about the novelty of leaving the village. Sasuke maintains his customary silence, though there's a watchfulness to it that Naruto has learned, over the past few weeks, to recognize as directed specifically at him. It's roughly 2 hours into the journey that Naruto's carefully honed instincts first flare into genuine alarm. There, half submerged in a puddle beside the dirt road, on a day that hasn't seen rain in over a week, any experienced operative would recognize the anomaly instantly. Squad Zero's training has drilled environmental awareness into Naruto so thoroughly that his mind flags the inconsistency almost before conscious thought catches up. A puddle, in dry weather, on a clear path, exactly the kind of subtle tell a water affinity shinobi might leave behind after using a jutsu to conceal themselves. His stomach tightens. He glances toward Kakashi, half expecting the Jonin to have already spotted the same thing, and Kakashi's posture, deceptively relaxed, orange book still held loosely in one hand, tells Naruto everything he needs to know. Kakashi has noticed. Kakashi is waiting. Naruto forces himself to walk past the puddle without reacting, without so much as a flicker of the recognition currently screaming through every trained instinct in his body. It is, without question, one of the hardest pieces of performance he's had to maintain in weeks, pretending not to notice a threat his entire body is already preparing to respond to. The attack comes moments later. 2 missing chain-linked gauntlets whirring through the air, erupt from concealment, and shred through Kakashi in a spray of blood that draws a horrified gasp from Sakura and a controlled, tense readiness from Sasuke. Naruto's instincts scream at him to move immediately, decisively, the way 3 years of ANBU training would have him respond to any genuine threat, a controlled, efficient neutralization that would end this fight in seconds. He doesn't. He forces himself, through sheer force of will, to freeze for exactly the half-second a genuinely inexperienced genin would freeze, shock and fear playing across his face in a performance that costs him more effort than the actual fight would have. Sasuke moves first, pinning the attacker's chain to a tree with a well-placed shuriken, buying just enough time for the dead Kakashi to reveal himself, unharmed, having substituted with a nearby log at the last possible instant. The fight that follows is fast and brutal, Kakashi engaging both missing nin directly, subduing them with the efficient precision of a veteran jonin, while Naruto, forcing himself to stay back, watches with carefully performed alarm rather than the calm, tactical assessment his real training would demand. It's over in under a minute. Kakashi restrains both attackers, and the immediate crisis passes, but the mission's true nature has just been laid bare in the worst possible way. These are Chunin-level missing nin from Kirigakure, Kakashi says grimly, examining the restrained attackers. The demon brothers. Skilled, but not skilled enough to be operating on their own initiative against the C-rank escort. He turns to Tazuna, his casual demeanor replaced by something considerably sharper. I think it's time you told us the truth about this mission. Tazuna's shoulders sag, the guilt of a man who has clearly been carrying a secret he knew would eventually surface. Wave Country is under the control of a shipping magnate named Gato, he admits. He's strangled our economy, and I've been building a bridge that would break his monopoly. He's put a bounty on my life to stop it. I lied about the mission rank because Wave Country doesn't have the money for anything higher, and I was desperate. Kakashi studies him for a long moment, weighing the ethics of an escort mission that has just revealed itself to be considerably more dangerous than what his team was actually briefed for. This changes things considerably, he says. If Gato's willing to hire missing nin to protect his interests, we should assume this is only the beginning. If you're wondering how Naruto's carefully performed shock during that first fight held up under Sasuke's already suspicious scrutiny, the answer is, not particularly well. And it's about to matter a great deal more once the real danger of this mission arrives. That evening, as the team makes camp before continuing toward Tazuna's village, Sasuke finds a private moment to corner Naruto away from the others. A pattern that has become uncomfortably familiar over the past several weeks. You hesitated, Sasuke says without preamble, dark eyes fixed on Naruto with an intensity that makes the deflection Naruto's already forming feel considerably weaker than it needs to be. During the fight, you had an opening before I did. I saw it. And you froze instead of taking it. I panicked, Naruto says, forcing the words out with the same practiced unease he's used before. First real fight. Guess I wasn't as ready as I thought. That's not what I saw, Sasuke presses. I've watched you freeze during training exercises when you're genuinely caught off guard. This wasn't that. This was different. You looked like you were holding yourself back. Naruto's stomach tightens. Of everything Squad Zero has trained him to handle, direct, repeated confrontation from someone this perceptive was never adequately covered. Mostly because nobody anticipated a classmate this sharp taking such a personal interest in unraveling his cover. I don't know what you want me to say, Naruto says, aiming for frustrated defensiveness rather than the genuine anxiety actually coiling in his chest. I told you already, I've been training on my own. Maybe some of it's finally sinking in, and it looks weird because you're used to me being bad at everything. I don't know what else to tell you. Sasuke studies him for a long, uncomfortable moment, clearly unsatisfied but equally clearly out of ways to push further without evidence more concrete than instinct and observation. Fine, he says finally, turning away. But I'm not going to stop watching. Something about you doesn't add up, Naruto, and sooner or later, I'm going to figure out exactly what it is. It isn't a threat, precisely. It's something more unsettling than a threat, the calm, patient certainty of someone who has decided a puzzle is worth solving regardless of how long it takes. Naruto watches him walk away, the weight of the confrontation settling heavily in his chest. 3 years of careful performance, and it's a 13-year-old classmate's stubborn curiosity that's proving hardest to manage of all. They reach Tazuna's village the following day without further incident, and the team settles into the modest, tension-filled routine of guarding a bridge construction site against the looming threat of Gato's hired muscle. Kakashi begins intensive chakra control training, the famous tree climbing exercise that canon fans will recognize immediately, while quietly, carefully assessing his team's readiness for whatever comes next. It's during this training that Naruto faces perhaps his most delicate balancing act yet, demonstrating enough visible struggle and improvement to maintain his cover as a genuinely developing genin, while ensuring his actual chakra control, honed to a considerably higher standard by years of ANBU level training, doesn't reveal itself too obviously in the process. He manages it, mostly through careful, deliberate pacing, allowing himself visible frustration during the early attempts, gradually improving over the following days at a rate that looks impressive for a genin but carefully, deliberately slower than his actual capability would allow. Sakura, naturally gifted with excellent chakra control, masters the exercise almost immediately, which provides useful cover. Her success draws attention away from scrutinizing exactly how quickly Naruto's own progress unfolds. Sasuke, however, still watches. Always watching, cataloging, weighing. Your control's improved faster than it should have, he observes one evening, watching Naruto complete another successful ascent up the designated tree, chakra flow controlled and precise, even accounting for extra practice. Maybe I'm just a fast learner when it actually matters, Naruto says, forcing a grin that feels considerably more brittle than it used to. Sasuke doesn't respond, but the look he directs at Naruto lingers a beat too long to be simple acceptance. It's on the fourth night of training, deep in the surrounding forest, that Naruto encounters something that will complicate this mission far beyond a simple matter of maintaining his cover. He's slipped away from the group's temporary lodging under cover of darkness, not for a Squad Zero mission this time, but simply for the rare, precious opportunity to move without performance, to stretch muscles cramped from days of deliberately restrained training, to breathe without calculating every gesture for an audience. He doesn't expect to encounter anyone else in the forest at this hour. He's wrong. A figure emerges from between the trees, a young man, perhaps a few years older than Naruto, dressed in a simple kimono, carrying a small basket of medicinal herbs. There's something immediately striking about him. Delicate, graceful features, an unusual stillness to his movements that Naruto's trained instincts immediately, automatically categorize as the bearing of someone with real combat training, however peaceful his current activity appears. You're out very late, the young man observes, voice soft, unthreatening. Gathering herbs myself. My teacher isn't well. Just needed some air, Naruto says, falling easily into the persona of an ordinary, slightly awkward genin. Though something about this stranger's careful, assessing gaze makes him wonder, briefly, if the performance is entirely necessary here. They talk, briefly, about nothing in particular, the pleasant, meandering conversation of two strangers who've crossed paths by chance in a quiet forest at night. But there's a weight underneath the young man's words that Naruto, with 3 years of interrogation and observation training, catches almost immediately. Do you have someone precious to you? The young man asks, apropos of nothing, dark eyes searching Naruto's face with unexpected intensity. Someone you'd protect, no matter the cost? It's a strange question, delivered with a gravity that doesn't match the casual pretense of the conversation. Naruto considers it carefully, thinking of Byaku's steady presence, Ibaraki's quiet loyalty, Suzu's fierce protectiveness, the old man's careful, patient guidance. Yeah, he says, and there's a weariness in his voice that surprises even him. The weariness of someone who has already killed to protect people precious to him, though this stranger has no way of knowing that. I do. A few people, actually. Something shifts in the young man's expression, a flicker of something that looks almost like recognition, almost like kinship, quickly masked. Then you understand, he says quietly, that true strength doesn't come from fighting for yourself. It comes from having something worth protecting. I know that better than you'd think, Naruto says, the words slipping out with more weight and certainty than his supposed persona should carry. The young man studies him a moment longer, something calculating and uncertain behind his gentle expression, before offering a small, polite bow and disappearing back into the forest with his basket of herbs. If you know this world, you already know exactly who Naruto just spoke with, and you know that conversation is about to matter a great deal more than either of them realizes tonight. Because Haku has just met a version of Naruto Uzumaki that isn't supposed to exist yet, one carrying the weariness of genuine loss rather than the naive optimism of an ordinary academy graduate. And that unsettling mismatch is going to linger with him. 2 days later, the confrontation that canon fans have been waiting for finally arrives. Zabuza Momochi emerges from the mist surrounding the bridge, his massive cleaver-like blade resting easily across one shoulder, killing intent radiating outward with the casual, practiced menace of a genuine S-rank missing nin. Copy Ninja Kakashi, Zabuza says, voice carrying easily across the water. I've been looking forward to this. Kakashi's expression sharpens immediately, protective instinct overriding everything else. Get behind me, he orders his team, Sharingan already uncovered, the tomos spinning with lethal readiness. This is far beyond your level. Sakura moves immediately to protect Tazuna, positioning herself defensively despite clear, understandable fear. Sasuke readies himself, tension coiled tight through every muscle. And Naruto faces, for the first time in this mission, the genuine, agonizing dilemma of watching a fight he could meaningfully contribute to while every instinct demands he perform helplessness instead. It's a dilemma that becomes considerably more urgent the moment Zabuza's water clone splits off from the main body and turns its attention directly toward Team 7's supposedly weaker members. The clone moves with unnerving speed, closing the distance towards Sakura and Tazuna before either Kakashi or Sasuke can intercept. And in that split second, genuine, immediate danger to people under his protection, no time to calculate a performance, only time to react. Naruto's 3 years of training simply take over. He moves faster than any genin 2 weeks into their career possibly should, intercepting the water clone's strike with a controlled block that redirects the force away from Sakura entirely, buying precious seconds for Kakashi to disengage from the main body and address the clone directly. It's over in an instant. Kakashi dispatches the clone with brutal efficiency the moment he's freed to focus on it. But the damage, in terms of Naruto's carefully guarded secret, has already been done. Kakashi's visible eye, even amid the chaos of a genuine S-rank confrontation, catches the full weight of what just happened. That block wasn't luck. That block wasn't a panicked genin flailing at the right moment. That was trained, deliberate, precisely executed defense, the kind of instinctive competence that takes years to properly internalize. There's no time to address it now. Zabuza's attention has already turned back toward the main confrontation, and the fight for the bridge, for Tazuna's life, for the entire mission's survival, consumes every remaining second of the encounter. But Kakashi files the moment away with grim, growing certainty, adding it to a mounting pile of evidence he can no longer dismiss as coincidence or exaggeration. The confrontation with Zabuza unfolds largely as canon dictates, Kakashi's Sharingan proving a decisive advantage, Zabuza's water clone tactics ultimately overwhelmed, until the fight builds toward its climactic moment. But this time, there's an added layer of tension running beneath the surface. Sasuke, even amid genuine mortal danger, finds himself watching Naruto with renewed, sharpened suspicion, cataloging the moment of the intercepted strike alongside everything else he's already collected. It's Haku's timely intervention, the masked hunter nin persona canon fans will recognize, arriving to apparently finish off his supposedly defeated partner, that shifts the confrontation's trajectory in a direction unique to this telling. Because Naruto, watching the masked figure's fighting style from where he's positioned protectively near Tazuna, recognizes something the rest of his team doesn't. That's not a real hunter nin technique, he mutters, low enough that only Sasuke, standing nearby, catches the words. What? Sasuke turns to look at him sharply. The disposal method, Naruto continues, the words slipping out before he can properly stop himself. 3 years of intelligence training overriding his careful performance in the heat of the moment. Real hunter nin destroy the body on sight to prevent secret jutsu from being stolen. That's standard procedure. He just carried the body away instead. Sasuke stares at him. How do you know that? The question lands like a physical blow. Naruto's mind scrambles, too slow, too exhausted from days of careful performance layered atop genuine mortal danger, to construct an adequate deflection in time. I read about it somewhere, he manages finally, weak even to his own ears. Sasuke doesn't respond immediately, but the look on his face, equal parts confusion and mounting, unwilling certainty, makes clear that this particular explanation satisfies him even less than the training excuse from weeks earlier. Kakashi, several paces away, has caught the exchange as well, and his expression, hidden mostly behind his mask, tightens with an understanding that has been building for days now, finally crystallizing into something he can no longer set aside as mere curiosity. If you've been waiting for the moment this entire, carefully constructed house of cards finally starts to genuinely collapse, this is it. Naruto didn't just demonstrate unusual skill this time, he demonstrated specific, specialized knowledge that no ordinary genin, however talented, would have any plausible reason to possess. Subscribe now, because in the back half of this chapter, the consequences of that slip are about to catch up with him faster than he can outrun them. That night, back at Tazuna's home, tensions run high as the team processes the day's events. Zabuza and Haku's apparent deaths, the mission's continued danger, the mounting sense that Gato's threat is far from resolved. But underneath the surface tension of the mission itself, a quieter, more personal confrontation is brewing. Kakashi finds Naruto alone on the home's small porch, staring out at the darkened water, clearly working through the weight of everything the day has demanded of him. That was very specific knowledge you shared today, Kakashi says, settling down beside him without preamble, his usual casual demeanor entirely absent now. About Hunter-Nin disposal protocols. That's not something covered in any academy curriculum I'm aware of. Naruto's stomach drops. I told Sasuke I read, Naruto. Kakashi's voice, quiet but firm, cuts through the deflection before it can fully form. I've spent 3 years as an ANBU captain. I know exactly what genuine Hunter-Nin protocol looks like, and I know exactly how rare that specific knowledge is outside people with direct field experience in that world. I also know what a trained, deliberate defensive maneuver looks like, and I watched you execute one today that would make some chunin I've served with look sloppy by comparison. Naruto says nothing, the weight of exposure pressing down on him with an intensity he hasn't felt since Sasuke's first pointed confrontation weeks ago. I went to the Hokage, Kakashi continues. Asked him directly about the inconsistencies I've observed. He confirmed, in general terms, that you carry responsibilities beyond what your file reflects. Classified responsibilities he wasn't prepared to detail, even to me. I've respected that boundary so far, out of trust in his judgment. But I want you to understand something, Naruto. He turns to look at Naruto directly now, his visible eye holding a weight of genuine, unguarded concern that cuts through every careful professional distance he's maintained since Team 7's formation. Whatever you're carrying, Kakashi says, whatever burden requires a 13-year-old to have Hunter-Nin disposal protocols memorized and combat reflexes that took me years to develop, that's not something a person should have to carry alone. I don't know the full picture yet, and I won't pretend to. But if there's ever a moment where that burden becomes too much, or where it puts you in danger I'm not aware of, I need you to trust that you can come to me. Not just as your sensei. As someone who's spent enough of his own life carrying secrets to recognize what it costs. There's something in the sincerity of the offer that catches Naruto off guard, cutting through exhaustion and careful calculation alike. This isn't Kakashi building a case, or gathering evidence, or preparing to expose something dangerous. This is, unexpectedly, genuine concern from a man whose own history, Naruto knows enough about ANBU's service to understand the toll it takes, gives him real, hard-won authority to recognize exactly the kind of weight Naruto's been carrying. I can't tell you everything, Naruto says finally, the words coming out quieter, more honest than anything he's managed to say to Kakashi since this mission began. I want to, but it's not just my secret to share. I understand, Kakashi says, and remarkably he seems to mean it. I'm not asking you to break whatever trust you're bound by. I'm telling you that I see you, Naruto, not the persona, whatever it's built to accomplish, but the person underneath it, carrying more than any genin your age should have to carry alone. That door stays open, whenever you're ready to walk through it. Naruto sits with that for a long moment, something loosening in his chest that he hadn't fully realized was wound so tight. Thank you, he says quietly, for not pushing harder than that. Someone very wise once told me, Kakashi says, an old, faint sadness threading through his voice, that trust given carefully is worth more than answers extracted by force. I'm choosing to extend that trust to you, Naruto. I hope, in time, you'll feel able to extend some of it back. He rises, offering a small, genuine smile beneath his mask that Naruto can somehow still sense despite the fabric covering half his face. Get some rest, Kakashi adds. Tomorrow's likely to bring more of Gato's hired muscle, and I need my team at full strength, all of you, including whatever part of you I'm not yet permitted to fully understand. Sasuke, watching this exchange from a discreet distance through a gap in the home's paper screen door, absorbs the conversation with a complicated mixture of frustration and something almost like validation. He couldn't hear every word, but he caught enough. Kakashi's mention of classified responsibilities, the Hokage's direct confirmation that something real and significant underlies Naruto's inconsistencies. He isn't wrong, then. Whatever he's been noticing for weeks isn't paranoia or overactive imagination. There is genuinely something Naruto is hiding, something significant enough that even the Hokage himself is directly involved in protecting it. The question now isn't whether Sasuke's suspicions are justified. It's what he intends to do with that confirmation, and how much longer he's willing to wait before demanding real answers instead of careful, evasive deflections. He doesn't confront Naruto again that night. But something in his expression, when their eyes briefly meet across the quiet house, carries a weight of unspoken understanding that makes clear, whatever patience Sasuke has extended so far is rapidly running out. The mission's climax arrives 2 days later, exactly as canon history remembers it. Zabuza and Haku's return, revealed to have survived their apparent deaths, Gato's betrayal of his own hired muscle, the desperate, decisive battle that determines Wave Country's fate. Naruto, forced once again into the impossible position of balancing genuine, life-threatening danger against the careful preservation of his cover, ultimately allows more of his real capability to show through than he's ever risked before, not through careless slip, but through deliberate choice, recognizing that protecting his team matters more, in this moment, than maintaining a fiction that both his sensei and one of his closest teammates have already begun to see through. The battle concludes with Haku's tragic death protecting Zabuza, and Zabuza's own subsequent turn against Gato in a final, redemptive act that costs him his life but secures Wave Country's freedom from the tyrant's grip. It's a heavy, bittersweet resolution, and Naruto, who spoke with Haku in that quiet forest days earlier, who understood something of the young man's devotion to someone precious to him, feels the weight of that loss more keenly than his teammates realize. You knew him, Kakashi observes quietly, as the team stands over the aftermath of the confrontation, watching Wave Country's people finally begin the long process of healing from Gato's tyranny. Before today, I could see it in how you reacted. We talked once, Naruto admits. In the forest, a few nights ago. He didn't feel like an enemy. He felt like someone who understood exactly what I understand, what it means to have something worth protecting, and what it costs to protect it. Kakashi studies him for a long moment, something thoughtful and sad passing behind his visible eye. That's a heavier understanding than most 13-year-olds carry, he says quietly. I find myself wondering, more each day, exactly what path led you to carry it so young. Naruto doesn't answer directly. But something in his silence, this time, feels less like careful evasion and more like genuine, unspoken grief. Grief that Kakashi, watching closely, chooses not to press further. The mission concludes with the bridge's completion, Wave Country's people gathering to celebrate their newfound freedom, and Team 7 preparing for the journey home with the particular, hard-won exhaustion of a mission that revealed itself to be far more dangerous, and far more costly, than its initial C-rank classification ever suggested. As they walk the long road back toward Konoha, Sasuke falls into step beside Naruto, his expression carrying none of the frustrated demand of their earlier confrontations, something quieter, more deliberate, more patient. I'm not going to stop watching, he says simply, without preamble. But I think I understand now that whatever this is, it's bigger than something you can just explain to me on a training ground. Kakashi-sensei all but confirmed it's real, whatever it is. Naruto glances at him, surprised by the shift in tone. So what happens now? Now, Sasuke says, I wait? But I want you to understand something, Naruto. Whatever you're hiding, whatever burden you're carrying that requires this much secrecy, I intend to find out eventually. Not because I want to expose you. Because I think, whatever it is, it's isolating you in a way I recognize a little too well myself. It's an unexpectedly vulnerable admission from someone as guarded as Sasuke, and Naruto finds himself genuinely surprised by it. The careful performance he's maintained around his teammate for weeks suddenly feeling considerably less necessary. Someday, Naruto says quietly, I might actually be able to tell you. Not today. But someday. Sasuke nods once, accepting this with more grace than Naruto expected, and the two of them continue the long walk home in a silence that feels, for the first time in weeks, less adversarial and more like the tentative beginning of genuine understanding. Behind them, Kakashi watches the exchange with quiet, thoughtful attention, adding this small, unexpected shift to everything else this mission has revealed about the strange, extraordinary genin under his supervision.